Whoo! I am feeling good right now. I am feeling good, Mavs fans, because the Mavericks, I almost am beside myself trying to just make sense of how exactly they pulled this off. The fact that they were able to overcome everything, their own sloppy start, their own struggles in terms of turning the ball over, in terms of not keeping composure, looking like the team that, despite being more experienced, was somehow less composed, dealing with the officiating of Tony Brothers and company. Just remarkable to be in that situation, to be in that moment, falling down by 17 points, and somehow, some way, clawing back into it to advance to their second Western Conference Finals in a span of 3 years. You see, this team, there is a grittiness and composure that sets them apart, something that we have not seen a whole lot of. A couple of years ago, that was a fun Mavericks team, but that was held together by bubblegum and scotch tape. That was a team that had very evident, very clear flaws, and it was the combination of Luka's brilliance with Jalen Brunson's breakout party, which has continued on. Now he's right there at the cusp as well for a conference finals. So you have a lot of good stuff going on there. And man, I just can't help but think, as I speak back to that team a couple years ago, I can't help but wonder right now, what's Spencer Dinwiddie thinking? Right? Like, he said his choice to go with the Lakers. And again, it's his hometown team. Whatever. That's fine. Do you. But the amount of disrespect and unnecessary shots he was kind of firing at the Mavericks, in terms of them not being like, that's a good bunch of guys, but like, the Lakers are different, right? Like, you gotta do what dad says. Like, you mess up for the Mavericks and it's just kind of like, man, all right. But the Lakers, man, you got to be on top of it. Well, your Lakers did not exactly do much, right? Like, the play-in, like, didn't go well for you. Meanwhile, the Mavericks are right back where you should have been. And here's the thing, man. Like, this is where I'm at. As much as I'm throwing shade at Dinwiddie's way, I'd rather have Dinwiddie right now than Tim Hardaway Jr. That's just where I'm at. Hardaway had his one burner game moment, and thankfully Dallas cashed that check, because after that moment, he went right back to comically bad. And I don't know. Fortunately, they figured it out the last 2 games, playing Jaden Hardy over him and even Dante Exum. And while Hardy didn't shoot the ball well, the playmaking was there, the pace was there, and it was definitely a good chess move that paid off in the Mavericks' favor. But let's talk a little bit more about last night. The Dallas Mavericks find a way to erase a 17-point deficit and eke out a 117-116 victory over the young and very talented up-and-coming Oklahoma City Thunder. And this is just a brilliant game. Like, the turnovers, ugly. The fact that you were just getting mauled out there. Luka getting just hammered, whether it's by Dort, whether it's by who was another one? Cason Wallace had a big shot on him at one point. Just the physicality. You had Dort flying in like a linebacker on an attempted putback where he elbows Gafford in the back of the head, and there's no call on the play. And meanwhile, Gafford's laying there practically concussed on the floor as the ball is going back the other way for the Mavericks. And it's just like, I kind of wish we could do something about that. But since nothing was called, you're out of options. There's nothing you can do. Now, in this game, OKC, obviously fighting for their season, was desperate. And Dallas, not looking composed, really messed around a little bit too much. Even before the wheels looked like they were falling off, it got iffy, because Dallas, after taking a 42-40 lead, allowed OKC to go on a 24-6 run in the span of about 4 minutes, 24 seconds. And I'm not going to lie, that was one of those moments where I was just like, Jason Kidd, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? How are you not using a single timeout here? They are running away from you right now, and now you're down 16 at the half. What are you doing? Like, you were right there. You had actually taken the lead, and then it just pissed away. Now, the Mavericks did whittle the lead down a little bit. I think it was like 11 going into the fourth quarter, but you were concerned because you saw, like, okay, this has been a series of runs, and SGA, absolutely automatic. Like, I'm glad, for the most part in Mavs Twitter, I have seen people being at least fair at this point. OKC fans, they're very bitter and pissed off right now. I understand. Your team just lost in heartbreaking fashion. I understand. But at least most of Maverick fans I've seen now commenting on the Thunder as a team and as SGA specifically are like, dude, the guy's a monster. There's no doubt he's a superstar. That's great. That's awesome. They're going to be a problem for years to come. For OKC, this was a talented enough team to get it done. If they had found a way to eke past the Mavericks, I think this is a team that could have gone to the finals. You could say that they should have done more at the trade deadline, whatever. But overall, I love what OKC is building. And while SGA was absolutely lethal here, they got other great contributions as well. It wasn't just him. But every time Dallas made a run at it, it felt like officiating became a problem. Whether it was no calls, Luka, getting tripped, getting knocked over, at times steamrolled, whether it was attacking the basket, getting hacked and not getting a foul call, or just tic-tac the other way, fouls that seemed on one side to be very soft and very drawn to, calling the foul, versus the other side, guys getting mauled and not getting anything. It's two different whistles, even if it's the same official blowing or not blowing the whistle. And that's what made this tough, is every time Dallas felt like they were trying to make a run, OKC would get one or two of those whistles and Dallas wouldn't. And then the Thunder would hit a couple shots because, again, they are a deep and talented team. Overall, Dallas shot 51% from the field compared to 48% for the Thunder. Thunder shot 37% from three. Mavericks shot 47% from three. So there's your difference. Even though the Thunder did hit 15 threes, and we had talked about in the last stream that number 16 being really a magic number in this particular postseason. Teams that hit at least 16 threes win about 83% of games in this postseason. Now, that was the stat a few days ago. I don't know how that compares to the most recent data, but the Thunder were right there at that cusp. But the thing is, the Mavericks hit 16, so they hit the number. So great all-around offensive performance here. Dallas had 17 turnovers. Excuse my prepubescent voice cracking just now. 17 turnovers for the Mavericks, way too high. And it really offset a lot of the rebounding edge. They had a 47-31 rebounding edge, including doubling up OKC on the offensive glass, 14-7. Again, we said rebounding was a point of strength for Dallas in this series. But the second chance points that they were giving up were just brutal because of that and the turnovers. Like the second chance points, I think the Thunder had like 23 second chance points at one point. And the rebound or the turnovers were just killing the Mavericks. Dug them the hole, had to work through it, climbed their way out of it a little bit. And, even free throws, 17 of 24 for the Mavericks, 71%. For the Thunder, 13 of 17. And a big part of this is SGA does miss 3 free throws. He's been like a 90% free throw shooter in the series, but he misses 3. So you have a 1-point game in which a superstar uncharacteristically misses 3 free throws. And there's something poetic about the term foul merchant has been thrown around. The foul merchant being called for the game-losing foul, essentially. There's something very appropriate about that, poetic, I guess. But even still, this is a phenomenal win for the Mavericks. There's a whole bunch to run through here. And we're going to do our best here to do this. I don't know how long I'm going to be live today, but I got a lot of thoughts, a lot of notes I want to get through. And we're just going to try to dissect that here. So first in the house, let me say my well-due shout-outs here. First in the house that I saw, Cowboy X Factor, what's good? Frank, what's up, man? Alan, what's up? Mavericks Nuggets Western Conference Finals? Possibly. Kid needed to call a time. Yeah, Kid, there were several moments I still wanted Kid to call timeouts. Now, I'm not going to take too much away from Kid here. Again, Kid, you got your good and your bad. The bad is bad. The good can be very good as well. And if we're gonna give our flowers, we got to give kid flowers on this too. And I'll get into some strategic stuff here in a minute too. That showcased adjustments Dallas made that really had a huge impact in deciding this series. Extreme Gamer Mac, what's good? Officials handed Dallas the win. All right, bro. If that's if that's your take, I don't know what you're watching or what glasses you're watching through, but you might check your prescription. Let's see. MVP of the series. Who would you give it to? You say? Would you give it to Derrick Jones Jr. or Lively? It's Lively, bro. It's Lively. Like Jones Jr. phenomenal, but you could say that about a number of guys on this. Dereck Lively was a plus 71 in this series. Non-Lively was a minus 71 in the plus minus department. Lively was a plus 26 in a 1-point win in the playoffs. There you go. There you go. Like, he is the youngest player in NBA history to record a 15 rebound playoff game. He's 20 years old, like 93 days or something like that. The dude's a pup. And on this stage, in that moment, was just everywhere. His impact, his defensive versatility, his ability to cover ground, the quick second jump, all that, just incredible, absolutely essential to this Mavericks victory here. And it really does. It's there's so much crazy about this, right? Like the Mavericks would have taken Lively with the 10th pick, but they swung a deal with the Thunder in which what pick became Cason Wallace, who, by the way, I think is going to be very good for the Thunder as well. But Cason Wallace went to the Mavericks, went to the Thunder, and Dallas moved from 10 to 12 to still take Dereck Lively, which they were going to do. But in the process, they picked up an additional draft pick that became Omax Prosper, who I think is going to be a dude in a couple of years. I think next year you're going to see him making good contributions to this thing. But you essentially got two essential foundational pieces in that one trade back with OKC. And watching this series, you couldn't help but think like, damn, you know what the Thunder really need? A real big. Don't get me wrong, Chet is amazing. Chet is great. He is such a rare breed of player. There's maybe 3 guys in the league that fit that archetype of him right now. I guess you could say 4. But what they needed was a true big. And that's why at the deadline, with all their draft picks and everything they had, it's like, dude, you traded for Gordon Hayward, and he in the entire postseason had 46 minutes played, 3 shots attempted, and 0 points. But ESPN gave them a grade of an A for the deal. I'll be honest, I thought it was a good pickup. Did nothing. Ended up disastrous. He kind of blames it on what his role was and what opportunity he was given. But, bro, you got 46 minutes of court time. Some of those were garbage minutes, and you're not trying to pull the trigger. You're not trying to get some shots up. I don't understand that. That's just nonsense. That is nonsense. So very appropriate that the Thunder help us. They don't help us get Lively. Again, if they don't make that trade with us, we would have taken Lively at 10. So keep that in consideration. But they helped us get Omax. And who they absolutely did help us get was Daniel Gafford, who I know Gafford was not near as impactful in this series overall as Lively was. But it still goes to show you the Mavericks' defensive turnaround really, really started with those trade deadline moves. Gafford coming in, bringing that presence. When he swatted, who was the 3 he blocked here? His swat of, was it Isaiah Joe? No, it was Lou Dort. He blocked a Lou Dort 3-point attempt into the crowd. Dallas is down like 11 points at that point, and he's pumping his fist and he's yelling. And it's just like the crowd fed off of that. A much better crowd, by the way, last night at the AAC. OKC, backs against the wall, fighting for their lives, getting very favorable whistles at times. The Mavericks just getting mugged. It really, really was frustrating me how much Luka was arguing on it. When you get to the point where you have Luka with like 9 minutes left in the game, hit a pull-up jump shot, and he's like hitting his forearm trying to tell the ref he was fouled. And Dirk goes from mid-clap to like, hey, like yelling at Luka, like, cut the shit and play. And I don't know that Luka really complained the rest of the way after that. Incredible. So I kind of wish Dirk would just be at least on the, if not the coaching staff, at least put the man on the bench. I know he's enjoying retirement. He doesn't want to be away from his family. I wouldn't ask that, but I really do feel like Dirk is one of the few guys that Luka will just listen to. He has such respect and admiration for him. Yo, big game. What's good, fam? What's good?
What's up, dog?
How you doing, man?
I'm great. You know I'm good.
Yep. Hey,
I'm good. What's up? What's up? What's up? Talk to me. Talk to me. Talk to me, DDP. Talk to me. Did I say it? I said when we did our last show. Did I say it?
Yeah, you absolutely called it. You said if when we were still in like game 5 or whatever.
Game 5, baby. It wasn't no game 2. It wasn't no. We wasn't in the OKC series and it was already 3 games in. No, we were still in Clippers series, and I said, DDP, we beat these Clippers. We beat OKC.
Yep. Hey man, it was the same pattern too. It was you lose game 1, you win the next 2. You should have won the game after that, but you find a way to drop it. You know, that was a 31-point comeback, but still. And then you close it out with back-to-back wins. So phenomenal stuff. Absolutely phenomenal the way this team was able to rally.
Man, dog, I'm right now. I'm excited. I don't know. I mean, you felt it. I just felt one of the things I felt too, DDP, and I feel like you can agree with me with this. OKC is a nice team. They got a core. They're going to be a team to be reckoned with for a long time. But I felt like they still coming up. We made the shrewd moves, even though we got young guys. It felt like there was more veteran. PJ Washington felt like it was more veteran. Daniel Gafford felt it was more veteranous. You got Derrick Jones Jr. It felt like those guys had been through some wars. You know what I mean? So with those guys, even though they were young, they just had to blend with us, and it would take us to the next level. And I felt like we were ready when we would get those type of acquisitions. So once they took the next level and got those acquisitions, I was like, no, I think that experience is going to be a little too much. And I feel like Luka turned up, Kyrie turned up, but like you said, the Dereck Lively, Derrick Jones Jr., the PJ Washingtons, those guys that we got in the trade, in the draft, those are the guys that really came through for us, because we knew what Luka and Kyrie would do, but those were the pieces that we needed to really get there, and I felt they were too much for OKC, and we saw it in the end.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And, I was worried for a while in this game because Dallas just didn't seem like they were composed and holding it together. Like, you had points off turnovers. Dallas had 12 turnovers in the first half, and the Thunder converted that to 23 points. That was your difference in your 16-point deficit at the half. It's just the fact that you gave it away way too much, and then the Thunder were hurting you. They were actually converting it for buckets. That was the entire difference of the first half when you looked at these two teams. And James lost his connection for a second. We'll see how quick we can get him back in. There you are. You blipped out for a second.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had to. I was in the Wi-Fi and I had to go back to regular. Oops, I'm sorry.
All good.
I'm running around. I'm sorry. I'm with the ladies, the lovely ladies.
Oh.
We're going to try to. Yeah, we're trying to go out and get. Well, they trying to go out and get sales. I'm just a tag along, so I figured I might well go live since I'm the tag along guy.
Okay, sure. So you're not the driver, correct?
I'm not the driver. I'm chilling.
Okay. I was like, don't live stream and drive.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Ideal.
See, blue thing. Let's see if you can see blue things right
how goes it? Yeah. Definitely a just phenomenal response from the team in that second half. And once they finally kind of settled down a little bit, started actually getting good shots, got a little bit better, still turned the ball over too much. But, when you had 12 at the half, you only got 5 more the rest of the way. You're at least under control at that point. You're able to start kind of whittling it away. And Kyrie just MIA in the first half. I know he's waited like all postseason. He's gone until the second half to really try and turn it up. He had his struggles even with this. He said after the game that this was probably the hardest playoff series of his career, which is saying something when you consider some of the teams he's gone against. But Kyrie, he ended up with I know he had 22 points on 23 shots. So it's not like he was just raining it down, but they were timely buckets. They were big buckets that only Kyrie is able to make. And then, of course, you get that roll with like 3:24 left where he gets that crazy 3-point, just incredible shooter's touch where the ball basically rolls straight up off the rim and drops right back through like perfectly. The team feeds off that, and it's more his leadership and his composure as he's kind of holding guys together and keeping them glued, because that's one of those things with Luka. As phenomenal as he is, we know that he is a very driven by his passion and emotions player. And Kyrie, maybe with that little bit of age and experience, he's 8 years older than Luka, just kind of able to reel it in and hold the team together a little bit better, I feel like, kind of be that calming presence they need. And the team responds to everything on it. There's a reason post game they wanted to hear from Kyrie for the speech.
Yeah, man. I just feel like one of the things that I really liked about Kyrie is how he really. I feel like our atmosphere in Dallas, how we just really took him in. Well, not we, but Dallas Mavericks really took him in. It just really felt like it made it comfortable for him. And it's finally like he's finally got a home. I feel like this is the first time when you can really look back and say at his whole career from Cleveland to Boston to Jersey, to Brooklyn, it feels like this is really his home. And you can see he's finally comfortable and he's playing like that. He's playing calm. He's playing collected. And when Luka is maybe out of his sets, he brings him back. I feel like he's his calming, like second person to him. And I feel like that's what Luka kind of needed in this stage in his career. And because of those two being able to vibe like that, I think the other places of the team have really grown. It's been magic. I'm just interested to see what happens with this Game 7 with this Denver Timberwolves. Because if it's Minnesota, I know they got Anthony Edwards and all them, but we're going to get them. If it's Denver, I think we might take that to 7. That's going to be a series. But I think we have whatever it takes against them. But I'm excited.
Yeah. No, it's going to be a real challenge no matter who you've got here. But you know what? This is the second time, not just the second time in 3 years that you advance to the Western Conference Finals. It's the second time in 3 years that you knock off the Western Conference's number 1 seed. In the case 2 years ago, it was a 63-win Suns team. Then you have this case where the Thunder were 57 wins. I know you basically had a 3-way tie in the West, and it was the tiebreaker scenario that gave the Thunder the 1 seed. But even still, you got a team that was top 5 offensively and defensively in the regular season, a team that had the coach of the year, a team that had the number 2 finisher in the MVP race, a team that had the runner-up rookie of the year. Like, this was a stacked Thunder team. Yes, we talk about their age. They're the second youngest team in the league this year, youngest team to ever win a playoff series, youngest team to ever be the number 1 series. All of that. It's great. This is a really tough, gritty matchup. The Thunder had a clean slate health-wise coming into this series. The Mavericks, as divisive as he is, polarizing as he might be among the fans, Maxi Kleber being out in this series was huge. That's a versatile big that you simply needed in this series. Add to that Luka playing about half this series at maybe 50% health. Dude, this was a recipe for Thunder in 6, it felt like. Now, I still was clinging to the idea of Mavericks in 7. And, I didn't love the idea of having to win 3 times in OKC. But I was thinking that was maybe the direction that they were trending. And for a long time, it felt that way. NBA literally running ads for Game 7 in the first quarter or the start of the second quarter was just like, wow, okay, we're just putting the script out there now, huh?
In.
Especially with Tony Brothers. I don't remember the Mavericks' exact record when Brothers is the head official, but it's not good. Like, playoff history with him there is terrible. So it was like, from the very jump, you were kind of like, all right, we'll see how this goes, because we'll be tic-tac at times, and other times you'll get hit with a sledgehammer, full speed and no call. And we saw plenty of that in this game. But let's talk a little bit about, to me, the biggest thing that has not been really discussed here. Like I mentioned Lively and the impact he had, phenomenal, and even how they kind of helped contribute bringing him in. But to me, the big thing I look at for the series, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was exposed defensively here. The dude got 3rd place votes for Defensive Player of the Year, but he's still in this series in games 2 and 3 when the Mavericks flipped it around. He was primarily guarding PJ Washington. What happened after game 1? Dallas started running that post-up action on Shai with PJ, and it opened up the offense. And we were saying, like, dude, this is adding a new dimension, a new wrinkle we haven't seen in the offense, and it's really creating problems for Oklahoma City. PJ Washington ran wild games 2, 3, and 4 of this series. He had 29, 27, and 22. What happened after that? Well, OKC's counter after game 3 was to move Shai to Derrick Jones Jr. How did Derrick Jones Jr. close the series? Games 4, 5, and 6. 17 points, 19 points, 22 points. They hunted Shai Gilgeous-Alexander defensively, and they couldn't hide him. The Thunder could not hide him, and whoever he was on ran wild. Now, you still got to capitalize on it because the Thunder still, their entire thing was, we're going to make those role players beat us shooting threes. And the corner threes were lethal for the Mavericks. It was PJ Washington for a few games there, and then it flipped the last couple games to go for Derrick Jones Jr., and he had all 3 of his last games were playoff career highs for him. Like, that's stepping up to the moment and delivering in that. And again, getting him on a vet minimum, like basically in camp, is insane. So as much as people talk about that last play and how SGA played it defensively, like they picked him apart. Like they went after him. He doesn't have the poor reputation defensively that Luka does, that Kyrie does. Maybe he should. The fact he got 2 third place votes for Defensive Player of the Year is just wild to me, because you watch that series and it never felt like defensively he was making a big impact for him. And when you looked at, like, wait, so who's he matching up with? Oh, and that guy's running wild this game. Oh, he did it again. Okay, they're moving him over here now. Oh, now that guy's going wild. Maybe there's something here. Maybe there's a bigger conversation to have here about it. As automatic and phenomenal as SGA was in his mid-range game, and that dude is so good. Like, I was so impressed with him in this series. But man, that's something that they're gonna have to figure out how to address, whether it's just finding other ways to kind of help cover for him, or more help so that he can put more effort in on that side. That was a big difference to me in this series.
I mean, that's a great point that you brought up. I that's one thing I like talking with you, because you come with those analytical sides. When you look at the Michael Jordans of the world, when you look at the Kobe Bryants of the world, one of the things that they were both great offensively, but they were great defensively. That's what stood them out between the good and the great, right? Yeah, they can score on you at will, but can they lock you down? And that's what you knew about those 2 particular players. And if he wants to go to that realm, he's got to take a step up on defensively. But I commend the Mavericks to be able to expose that matchup and to be able to see it every time. And then once you said Derrick Jones Jr. having career highs each game, I mean, those were big buckets that he was hitting. You know what I mean? Yep. On a quote unquote guy who you're saying who's a top defensive guy. So the fact that they exposed him, really, I like the game.
You're cutting out a little bit. I think we got a connection issue.
It's going away. I'll probably come back.
It's cool. The audio is kind of clearing up a little bit here. All right, trying to say something?
Yep, I'm back.
Okay.
I was just going to say, I just want to get your quick thoughts on Jason Kidd, because I know you had your thoughts. We were talking about that multi-year deal coming. You said you knew it was going to come because of these victories. What's your thoughts on Kidd? Because, I've been with Kidd.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on it now, especially with this win?
In that first half, when the Thunder went on the 24-6 run in the final 4:24 after Dallas took the lead, and Kidd never once called a timeout, and it resulted in you being down 16 at the half, I wanted to rip my hair out, because I was like, I could not understand how his game management was that poor, where all the momentum was drastically swinging the other direction in a pivotal game, a chance to close it out at home, and he was kind of just watching it happen. So in that moment, I was fed up, and I was like, this is the problem I have with Kidd. Like, for all the things he does well, and he does do some things very well, like when Derrick Jones Jr. hits that insane shot with like 1:11 left over Chet Holmgren to put Dallas up 5. He falls down to the floor, and you see Kidd, because he fell out of bounds as he did it. Kidd's picking up and like shoving him, like, launching him like a NASCAR pit stop, basically back into the field of play, essentially. And you just see the energy, and you're like, okay, see, that's the player coach thing there. That's why guys like we saw 2 years ago, where he was calling out the rotations defensively, and you saw the energy and the passion. Guys will feed off of that, but there are blind spots or areas in his game, so to speak, as a coach, that are just insufficient to me. His in-game adjustments can be very frustrating. His feel for how to manage a game in terms of timeouts can be frustrating. But even still, more often than not in this postseason, he's gotten it right. When he's missed, it's been noticeably missed. But overall, obviously, you can't say they're in the position they're in without him doing a phenomenal job. So he's earned the new deal, and we're just going to have to understand there's going to be for better and worse of that. The highs are going to be very high. The lows are going to be very frustrating.
Right.
That's my take on it.
I can feel that, but I like the direction. I like how him and Nico work together, and I think that's what I'm happy about. How him and Nico have that relationship, and I feel like as long as they have that relationship, Nico's always going to get him the players in here to always compete, and that's what I want. Those two are kind of joined at the hip, and because of that, they're not going to let each other fail, and that's what I like about that combo.
Yep. So let's touch a little bit on kind of the theatrics at the end of the game here. After Dallas rallies back, I think with 3:11, Luka gets a bucket to make it 107-105 Dallas. That's them overcoming the 17-point disadvantage and everything. They're then able to they have a barrage where Kyrie gets a step back 3. They get a block on the other end. Luka gets a 3. And then I think OKC turns it over. Dallas basically on this run, as they were doing that, the Luka jumper I was talking about put them over that capped off like a 9-0 run out of nowhere, essentially. But it was really like the turning point where it kind of came unglued for the Thunder. But then, to their credit, as they've done so many times, they did get their feet back under them. And we get just a very bizarre sequence where Dallas goes up 5 points on that shot we talked about from Derrick Jones Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get the out of bounds foul by PJ Washington trying to run through the Lou Dort screen. Now, I understand because the ball wasn't inbounded yet. It's one free throw plus possession. Fortunately, that basically flips the dynamics, because you go from a situation where it's like, okay, we're up 5. Okay, so you got a 3. Now we have this nonsense, and they're able to get another couple points, essentially. And so it puts you into pressure where it's like, wow, in the blink of an eye, with literally the clock still stopped, we lost our leverage there. I don't know that Dort was set on his screen. PJ does absolutely barrel through, though, and when you're taking a charge, you don't have to have your feet set. It's not like high school basketball or anything like that. As long as you're squared up, basically, you're going to get that benefit of the call. But I like the mental toughness from PJ, because what came next was obviously the defining moment for the Mavericks. You have Luka driving in, and we get a broken play kind of scramble. Ball finds its way to PJ Washington. SGA does go up and initially cap the ball, and that's what people who are today looking at this play and saying, like, oh, if you get the ball first, then it's not a foul. And it's like, if the ball was coming out of PJ's hands, you would be right. But PJ Washington, sensing the capped hand, SGA hand on top of the ball, doesn't shoot the ball, doesn't release the ball. He basically double clutches it and moves it away, like brings it from in front of his face kind of more to the right. And that takes SGA's hand from being on the ball to being instead on his forearm as he's releasing the shot. So you get a foul on a 3-point attempt. With the way the game was officiated, I was like, okay, to me, that is a shooting foul because of what I just described. But the way it's been officiated, it would not shock me if they somehow said, like, never mind, no foul. And because we called a dead ball, the Kyrie follow on the ball falls short and Kyrie got a tip in. Because they blew the whistle, they would wave that off, and then it would be a side out down 1 point with 2.5 seconds. That's what I was bracing for. because I was like, that's just how this game has been officiated, you know? And instead, to my pleasant surprise, they actually got the call right. And I've seen any rules experts and everything chiming in on this, not just media people or like writers for certain teams that are fans of them, obviously, saying like, no, by the rule, this is right. The fact PJ holds onto the ball and then is able to wait until SGA is then contacting the arm to actually attempt the shot is why this is a foul. And PJ Washington, we said before, is not a good free throw shooter. Has not been really in his career, and especially in this postseason. Goes to the line, and I don't care if he rattles them home. He knocks down the first two, and then makes the plan of like, all right, they're out of timeouts because they made a challenge late in the game. The Thunder did. So basically, like, they got no timeouts. We're just gonna miss this free throw and make them chuck it from 80 feet. And I'm not gonna lie, I had a little bit of a flashback to that Cleveland game. If you remember that, where they hit like the 75-footer at the buzzer to win. I had a little bit of a PTSD flashback as the ball went up in the air because it was Jalen Williams doing it. I was just like, man, I swear if this happens. Instead, the ball falls short. PJ Washington gets his moment, you know, hometown team comes back. It's so appropriate because when the Mavericks were eliminated from the playoffs last year, it's because PJ Washington went off against Charlotte when they were playing. He was still on Charlotte. Mavericks were playing them. He hits a three in like the closing seconds that it basically puts that out and ends the Mavericks season. Basically 1 year to the day later, almost not the day, but just over a year later, he's making the clutch points for his hometown team to advance them to the conference finals. I'm like, that's pretty great storybook stuff there.
Yeah, I think the thing I loved about it is the Mavericks could have stood pat with Grant Williams. They didn't have to go with this PJ Washington thing. They could have stayed pat with Grant Williams, but I felt like they said, nah, this isn't working out. You know, this is, you know, went to the bench. This is not going to where we thought it was going, and they didn't stay where they were at. And they went and got PJ Washington, and that was the key. And you see, like you said, he's not a great free throw shooter. You're going with hella pressure, but first of all, kudos to PJ Washington for having ball awareness to know how to that 3-point shot. If he would have just shot it like it was, he wasn't going to get that call. So he's smart enough to go ahead and double pump to get.
Hang on. Audio's chopping up a little bit here. I'll see if I can bring it back in. I think we're froze up again. Yeah. No, incredible response. PJ Washington in this series, I think he shot 39%. Yeah, you're back. I think PJ Washington shot 39% from three in this. Let me look at this. So we talked about in the regular season when PJ came over to the Mavericks that the offensive game for him hadn't really been there yet. He was 31.4% from three in 29 regular season games with the Mavericks. In the second round, he shot 46.9% on 8.2 three-point attempts per game. Like, just a complete reversal of the role. And part of it is he just found his rhythm. He got into that. And part of it was, strategically, the Thunder were basically daring those role players to hit the corner threes. And for a while, they looked right because on paper, you looked at it and you're like, PJ Washington has not been a great three-point shooter this year, especially in his time with Dallas. His percentage actually dropped from where it was with Charlotte. Derrick Jones Jr. at his best the last couple years is still an average three-point shooter. His percentage climbed up. Statistically speaking, your best three-point shooter out of your role-playing bunch was Josh Green. So their strategy made sense. It's just that they got enough of their main guys going, they were able to override it and make it turn it around a little bit for them. So awesome for PJ doing that, being able to respond in that way. Did you happen to see what Dereck Lively's plus minus was for the series?
No, but I monster
Yeah.
Like I said, I made it.
Yeah, we might have to run it back on another one because I think the connection is getting really unstable. Let's bring you back on and whether it's a video or a stream or something tomorrow or whatever, we'll bring you back on when we know the matchup, and we'll do it that way, because I think it's just getting really unstable at this point. All right, yeah. All right, so I mentioned it earlier, but I'll say it again. We had a plus 71 for the series for Dereck Lively. Absolutely incredible impact there. And I love the fact that even the Merriam-Webster dictionary tweeted out after the game the definition: lively, adjective, quick to rebound. I appreciate that. You got to get in on that energy while you can. Let's see here. Anything else I can bring up? I mentioned this in my post-game thing last night. The Kyrie Irving is now 14-0 in closeout games in his career. That is so bonkers of a stat. I don't even really know how to wrap my head around it. The man's 13 years in the league, and he's 14-0 in closeout games. And it looked in doubt for a while here. We know what Luka's stats are in closeout games. Jason Kidd is now 4-0 as... well, actually, let me correct that. Kidd is also unbeaten in closeout games. And he's also 4-0 in game sixes as a Mavericks coach. So some crazy stuff there for the Mavericks, keeping all these trends going for them, because some of these things were very, very much in doubt. In this game last night, the Mavericks had 27 second chance points, according to Kevin Gray Jr. That is the most in the last 25 years for the Mavericks in a single game. Pretty wild there. So just the effort, the hustle, all of that from this team, top to bottom, was just phenomenal. Absolutely loved everything we saw from it. I do think that bringing in Jaden Hardy, even though he didn't shoot the ball well in the series, I think he was only 1 of 5, but the playmaking, the pace, all of that was so much bigger than what we were getting out of Tim Hardaway Jr. You still have weirdness where Kidd just won't completely let go of Hardaway. I think he's still holding out hope of another Hardaway burner type moment or stretch. I think you got to move on from that boat, man. Like we've played this game. You squeezed the blood from the stone in the one game he finally went off. And you just kind of got to move on from that, because it so quickly reverted back. And that's what I've always said about the Hardaway stretch. If he's able to get going and keep it going, ooh, mama, you are going to be hard to beat. But if it's a single game thing, you better hope that you get the job done there, because you're going to be going back through the desert looking for water, waiting to get to the next great performance from Hardaway. And that's just kind of the trend that we've seen. My chair is trying to go out on me, so I keep having to adjust it here because the dynamics of the chair are just all over the place. It's like not stable. So I'm like sitting, and all of a sudden I feel myself tilting. Let's see. Would I trade Hardaway to a team like the Pistons for cap space and a pick to re-sign? Dude, I would trade Hardaway to anyone that would take him right now. But the problem is, I don't know what his value is, but I know what his contract is. And I feel like that's going to be hard to move. You got to find a team that just has ample cap space and doesn't care and will take whatever back you kick them. So if that's the Pistons, fine. But Derrick Jones Jr. needs to be a Maverick for the rest of his career at this point. You got PJ Washington. He signed a new deal with Charlotte last offseason. So it was a 3-year deal. So you got him for another minute longer. That's great. You need to make sure you do not lose Derrick Jones Jr. because I said this last video. He picked Dallas over the Celtics because he saw an opportunity with their style of play, their ecosystem, like we talked about, to help him thrive and do more. That is what you need. You need to reward that. It's paid off for him on the floor, but he's making like an eighth of the salary that Tim Hardaway Jr. is this year. You've got to do something to rectify that. I'm not saying you pay him the world. One, you don't have the world to offer, but you absolutely got to pay the man fair and reward that loyalty and reward that performance, because none of this is possible without his contributions. Mark Daigneault after the game, talking specifically about Derrick Jones Jr. Let me see if I can find his exact quote here. He said, Here it is. The effectiveness that they've had in this series has been schematic. Jones has great length. He's got good discipline. He's in the right position on a lot of plays. We've tried to back cut him. We tried to back cut him a couple times in advantageous times of the game where you can usually catch a guy sleeping, and he never slept. That's pretty apropos. The activity, the attention to detail on the defensive side, not just the alley-oops that you would see or him getting out in transition for those buckets, but also the three-point shooting, the timely three-point shooting that he would offer up. Just fantastic stuff from him. You got to find a way to keep him. You got to find a way to reward him because he's never had this kind of impact on anywhere he's been. He's been effective. He's been beneficial and useful anywhere he's been for the most part. Miami, he was good for them for a few years. He was a part of that 2020 bubble team that went to the finals. Chicago, he had a big impact there. He was a high priority for them to try and re-sign this past offseason when he basically said, like, I'm not coming back. And that was a loss for them. And so you look at that, plus how long it took him to finally sign, and then he signed a vet minimum to come to Dallas. And you might think, like, yeah, maybe he misplayed that. But no, he did not. Because he found, I think, a home. He found an ecosystem in which his energy, his attention to detail, his fit among the rest of the roster is perfect. He is the absolute perfect example of the kind of culture guy that this team needs. PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. are those dogs. Now, I know we talked before about Gafford kind of being in that conversation. Gafford's been very good as well. This was a rough series for him, but the emergence of Derrick Jones Jr., the emergence of the other Dereck Lively, helped offset what we ended up being surprised by in Gafford's lack of real impact for this team. The plus minus with Gafford on the floor versus Lively was staggering. It was almost completely inverted. It was like a minus 68 with Gafford out there and a plus 71 with Lively out there. Incredible what he was able to do. Jason Kidd was talking about how after the game in the third quarter, he was talking with Kyrie after Kyrie told him this is the hardest series he's ever had to play through, which again is saying something because he hit that shot, obviously, Game 7 of 2016 finals to beat the 73 win, Warriors. But when he said that, Kid basically said, like, hey, nothing comes easy in life. You've got to find a way to help us win this game. Basically, like, you have to do more. You have to score. You can't wait for the moment to come to you. And after that, Irving poured in 18 of his 22 points from that stretch on. So pretty wild there. I talked earlier about the Thunder not being able to hide SGA defensively and how anyone he guarded started going off in this series for the Mavericks. That's huge. So the Mavericks just take down the Thunder, who were first in the West, had 57 wins, the number 2 MVP finisher, coach of the year, top 5 offense and top 5 defense. And they were favored entering the series with 0 players listed on their injury report. They also had a 5-man lineup with the most games played in the league by 8 full games. This was a team perfectly positioned and constructed to win this series. Dallas finds a way, meanwhile, to get over the hump and beat them in 6. Phenomenal. Again, Luka, maybe 50% of himself for like over half this series. The last couple games, he found himself a bit better. Mavericks got back to business, but there were maybe 3 good games from Luka, like good by Luka standards games. You also had a couple games that were really bad, I'll be honest, but absolutely showed up and delivered. I also like the people pulling up tweets. You know, we like to do that. We like to pull receipts. You got draft dummies on Twitter basically saying, like, on October 5th, spoiler, Dereck Lively's not going to have the kind of season that Walker Kessler did last year. I like Walker Kessler, but maybe it's fair to say that, yeah, he did, and then some. The whole thing with Hayward for OKC is just wild to me. Like them at the trade deadline with all of those draft picks. Sam Presti said at the deadline he wanted this team's goal for the year to be to get into the playoffs and then to stress test them to see where they were at and decide how to do this. I expect OKC to be extremely aggressive this offseason. But it's wild to me. Now, I get it. They ended up finishing first, but it's not like they made a late push to get there. They were basically positioned for most of the year in that top 3 picture in the West. At the trade deadline, he should have been way more aggressive. And maybe he thought Hayward would be good and just whatever it was, the fit, the role, whatever, didn't jibe. I don't know. But for how much they have in the way of assets and draft capital that they could have offered up to get themselves a true big, and the fact that both of Dallas's bigs they helped facilitate is just so unfortunate for them. It's like, you gave us the ammunition to take you down. Like, you wanted a stress test, bro. You were on the cusp of the Western Finals, and if you didn't give us the ammunition, I'm being very careful because of YouTube's algorithm and automatic censors of not using a different analogy. You gave us the ammunition essentially to end your season. Wild how you basically set about your own destruction here. I like this from Panda Hank too. He's talking about, again, talking about that OKC defense. Brandon Ingram's last 3 games versus the Thunder in the first round compared to Derrick Jones Jr. Brandon Ingram had in game 2, 8 points on only 2 of 14 shooting, 19 points on 7 of 14, so better, much better, and 18 points on 5 of 10 shooting. Compare that to the last 3 games that Derrick Jones Jr. just had: 22 points, 19 points, and 17 points. Oh, you want to know the shots and attempts? 22 points on 8 of 13, 19 points on 7 of 9, and 17 points on 7 of 12. The turnaround was staggering, and the impact was undeniable. In games 4 and 5, this came from Josh Bowe. In games 4, 5, and 6, Derrick Jones Jr. averaged 19.3 points per game and made 8 3-pointers. Staggering. Compare that to OKC's second best guy. Again, yes, he's a second-year player. I understand that. But in games 4, 5, and 6 for Jalen Williams, he had 16 points per game and made 3 3-pointers. Staggering difference there. And I understand OKC was stayed kind of to the end with that strategy of baiting the Maverick role players to beat him. And that's very different than what the number 2 guy typically sees. But that's just kind of where we ended up. So it's wild to be in this position. Wild to be in this position where you just are getting all of your pieces fitting together. Guys stepping up. We talked about this. It's never a one guy thing. As much as we talk about, like, Luka's got to be legendary, Kyrie's got to go off. That's true. They got to do something, and they combined for 51 points in this game, and that's nice. But the fact is, you got to have a lot of those role pieces step up. Lively might not have averaged a lot of points, but the impact he had defensively around the rim, rebounding, the way he was actually able to block shots and just be a threat for alley-oops and whatnot, just had an incredible impact on this entire series. And it all culminated with this 15 rebound performance again last night. I liked this from and I don't know the guy, I just came across it as a recommended tweet on Twitter. It looks like it's just another NBA podcaster, maybe a Warriors fan, I'm not sure. But he's talking about the Mavericks season overall. And he said a couple things, his observation. He says, 1, no way Luka's going to miss the playoffs again. I think he's talking about, like, moving forward. I'm not really sure of that point because you just never know what kind of disastrous string of things could possibly happen. But he says the Mavericks had a win percentage of 68.6% when Luka and Kyrie played together this season, which is the third best, which would be the third best win percentage in the West. He said they fulfilled their potential of what they thought they could be and proved the doubters wrong. I like that. I also like this tweet from Coop Z on Twitter. He's talking about how all writers talking about this series, about this moment for the Mavericks, they're focusing on the easier things, whether they're putting out fluff pieces or hit pieces, talking about Mavs and Luka. They're missing the bigger storylines, he says, which are the things that are bigger kind of than the sport themselves, and specifically basketball in the grander scheme. He's talking about the angles of like Kyrie revamping his career and finding a home, or focusing on 5 different things for Lively: his personal life, his on-court play, the young player going from PJ, the young player going from a losing situation to a winning situation with his hometown team and being the difference. Minimum players producing the best basketball of their lives. He cites Derrick Jones Jr. He does cite Exum. Exum not really in the playoffs, but again, Exum had huge moments that contributed in the big picture in the regular season that helped to get this team in the initial position they did of the 5 seed. Yeah, or even if you wanted to focus it on Luka, talk about the fact that from just 2 years ago, only Josh Green and Luka Doncic remain on that Western Conference Finals team. And Josh Green barely played in that team. That team just 2 years ago, Josh Green barely got minutes in that postseason run. There's a lot more you can talk about here. Hell, you could talk about the team going from a live and die by the 3 to living in the paint, being absolute warriors in the paint, the rebounding, the complete identity shift mid-season, not just paying off in a noticeable way, but to the highest level possible, where they are now one of those elite teams. You had people trying to tell us before the Clippers series that the Mavericks are fake. They went on a run late. Yeah, big deal. They had the second weakest strength of schedule the last 30 games. Bro, it's 30 games. You're building momentum. You're getting new guys integrated into your system. I understand Kawhi being out in the first round, but you kicked their ass in 6. You should have done it in 5. Guess what? You should have done this round in 5, and they got no excuses in OKC. If all you're going to say is youth, well, then tell me why so many writers, including supposed Maverick media writers, were picking the Thunder in 5 or 6 games. Tell me that. This is not a fluke team. This is not a team held together by chewing gum and scotch tape and paper clips like it was 2 years ago, where they were going in strategically saying, hey, we understand we're not going to win the rebounding battle. We're not going to win the points in the paint battle. And we're also going to be lucky if we're able to win the second chance points by, that virtue. But we're going to bludgeon you with 3s, and we're going to be swarming defensively just to bother the hell out of you on everything else. And that worked. That plus the emergence of Jalen Brunson worked. And to be able to retool and fix things after that bad offseason losing Jalen, just crazy. Crazy to be able to turn that around and do what they've been able to do. This team is a complete rebuild. And they're in a position where, they're not going to be favored no matter what happens. They're not going to be favored. And I'm not just talking about the West. Like, whether it's the Timberwolves or the Nuggets, they're not going to be favored. The Mavericks aren't. That's fine. They're the 5 seed. Nobody would expect them to be favored. They might give them respect and say that it's going to be a closer series, but nobody's going to favor them. Compare that to, coming out of the East, regardless of what you got there, whether you got Celtics, Pacers, hell, Brunson and the Knicks, whatever you got. There's not really a series that I feel like Dallas is going to get that kind of respect. But this is not a fluky team built this way. This team's mentality, its mental fortitude and toughness is legitimate. What do you guys think about bringing in another guest here? Got a little more time. We can bring in another guest. Let's see. Sent out the invite here. Let's see if we can get him in for a minute. Let me roll through some of these comments here while we wait to get set up. Wheezy, what's good? I like that. Derrick Jones Jr. is this team's matrix. I feel that. I do. I feel that. Who are we rooting for tonight? Obviously, both will be tough no matter what, asks Black Yoshi. Man, I never try to call my shots because I still have PTSD from all the way back in 2006 when I called the possibility of it was the Pistons against the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Mavericks had already secured their spot, beating the Suns in 6. That was the year Stoudemire was out with his knee, but the Suns still got to game 6 of the West Finals against us. Same year that Dirk dropped his 50-point game in like game 4, maybe it was. And I remember thinking I'd rather take the Heat because I knew who the Pistons were. 2 years ago, they were the champions. 2004. 2005, they went to game 7 against the Spurs in the finals. And now it was 2006, and I was like, I don't want to deal with that. Dude, that team's stacked. Their defense is insane. Miami, second or third year player, Dwayne Wade, yeah, he's nice, but, I'm not looking at him with the same sort of reverence yet or thinking he's going to be better than Dirk or anything else we got. And they got Shaq, but like Shaq's kind of run down a little bit at this point. He's not the diesel that he was a few years ago. All that was in my mind. And I remember saying, I want Miami. I don't want Detroit. I want Miami. And oh, good googly moogly, that went poorly for me because 2006 was a PTSD experience all in itself after the first 2 games of that finals. TGK, I sent you the link if you want to hop in. So I'm not going to voice who I'd rather have. I'm just going to say you got hell waiting for you no matter who it is. But at this point, I think I'm done betting against the Mavericks to answer the call. Giddey did get himself played out of the rotation pretty heavily there. Giddey's kind of an interesting case because if he can just develop a consistent 3-point shot, at least his form's a little janky, but if he could just get a consistent 3-point shot, he'd be way more playable. But that was what was killing them is he wasn't an offensive threat, and Dallas was basically daring him to do something, and he couldn't. So yeah, he kind of fell out of that, and Wiggins was very good for them, more so for the first half of the series. And once they kind of made that shift, it put them in a tough spot. I have seen Gafford and Lively working on their threes. I think Lively will add a corner 3-point shot to his game as early as next season, perhaps. TGK, what's good?
Oh, we live. What's up, man? How you doing?
Not much, man. Not much. How are you?
Doing good, man. I'm doing good. This is restream. This is nice.
Yeah. Yep.
Restream. Let me see if I can adjust how close my camera is.
Here, I can remove the chat overlay, and that'll sort of help it. There you go. There's a different view.
There, cool. What's up, man? I'm happy to be here, man. I know we've been trying to link for quite some time, so this is kind of awesome here. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Happy to have you jump on and finally get to talk about the team a little bit. And it helps that it's good circumstances here. I remember one of the last times we tried to talk, it was after a frustrating game, and I was like, I don't want to talk about this.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier when they're winning. Obviously, you're able to really get your points out, and probably it helps validate some of the points, right, that you've been having. And it's like, see, I knew. But when you lose, it's tough. It's tough.
Yep.
It really is.
Yeah, and it's been therapeutic being able to go on another run like this, like they have this year, especially after last year. Because last year, it was 1 year, but it somehow felt like 3 as the season unfolded. It felt like 3 years of just absolute dystopian nightmare as you watch that fall apart, and you're like, you lost Brunson, you did all this, now your team's falling apart, and now you're like, are we like the worst constructed, like, not just absolute lottery team in the league at this point? Like, how do you get out of this purgatory without risking losing Luka? And for them to be able to build it back in this record time, and not just build it back, but find like the perfect combination of players. Some of that's good fortune, and some of that is just like actual talent evaluation and swinging deals, savvy deals. Like people who were still trying to downplay a lot of these moves, like, oh, you had to give up, you gave up the capital you gave up for Grant Williams and then jettisoned him 4 months or whatever later, and you had to give up another number 1 to get PJ Washington, and all these draft picks and stuff people were like pointing to and saying like, oh, that's just poor asset management. Ask me if it's bad asset management right now, like with where the team is at and how they're positioned. Does this look like a team that was just haphazardly, inefficiently thrown together? Or does this look like somebody that made chicken salad out of chicken something else?
Mm-hmm. And you know what's the crazy part about it is I remember last season we were discussing so much about Christian Wood and being a starter. You remember those days?
Yeah.
And those days are long gone, right? But it's credit to Nico and credit to the front office for able to make a pivot. I was big on the tanking to get the 10th pick. I know I got a lot of backlash for it, but I was like, if you're still within the window where you could kind of risk Luka being very upset. It was very risky, but it worked out so much. And look at where we are, man. I think we hit on Lively. I think if they did a redraft, he'd go second, you know. And
very well could.
We're in a great place right now. We got youth moving forward because you're seeing Hardy now, right? I think Hardy allows THJ to be expendable. You're able to make moves now, and then next year you can start incorporating Omax a little bit more. So what do you need to really fill out the rest of the squad, right? If Jaden Hardy develops into being that off the bench kind of guy, Omax develops into being your second or third option behind Kleba or ahead of Kleba, what else do we need, right? And that's a beautiful place to be in because then the Mavericks have all the leverage moving forward. So I'm just happy that where we're at right now. And I hope Luka continues his Wolverine recovery stage where he gets ready for the Denver Nuggets, man. I think if Luka's ready to go, well, I don't even want to assume, my bad, not just the Nuggets or the Timberwolves, but my preference is the Nuggets. But
Luka's been on that recovery factor business for a minute now. I wish I had that because I don't know how much therapy and stuff he's doing every day, getting right, but something unlocked the last couple games because he had that one last dud. And then the way they responded these last two games was like, oh, okay, there you are. Like, welcome back to the playoffs. We missed you for a moment. So it's crazy how in this series, like, people might say like, oh, well, his numbers were all down and all that. Like he averaged 24.7 points, 10.5 boards, 8.7 assists, and 1.8 steals. But even his shooting splits, which were so bad through the first few games, he ended up shooting 45% from the field, 39% from three, and 74% at the line. Like, for a guy that through 4 games was just not looking at all like a shadow of himself, essentially, to recover and finish with that kind of shooting splits and that stat line is just amazing. Like, I know that, I guess the way that game 4 went kind of blurred that line a little bit where people were just kind of like, he just hasn't been here at all this series. Like, he's been a detriment or whatever. And I get that, but I think that's just another way in which we can kind of be prisoner of the moment where whatever you experienced or saw most recently is going to seem like the overwhelming reality of the thing instead of just a small data point in a bigger, study.
And that's the playoffs, that's the playoffs for you. I think in the playoffs, and yes, we got spoiled. We've been spoiled early on by young Luka against the Clippers and then Luka going crazy against the Suns. We've been spoiled, but the playoffs, averages come down, everything comes down. Defense gets more difficult in the playoffs and your guy's hurt. Your guy is hurt dealing with a knee sprain. For those that don't know what a knee sprain is, it hurts like hell. It is difficult to even just move. Like the fact that he was able to do what he could do on a fresh sprain, I it's not talked about enough, but game 5 and game 6, I feel like he's back into like 76% healthy range where I thought before he was like 64, 62. And I think he's just getting healthier. Oddly enough, like I say, I call him Wolverine right now. I know he's Superman, but he's more Wolverine, right? Still trying to scratch and claw you, but he's getting healthy as he's healing. But I think the fact that he took 15 shots yesterday, you could have lied to me and said he took 30, even though it wasn't 30. But he took 15 and 9 of 15 and high efficiency. The turnovers is still an issue for him, but 7. The fact that he's still doing what he does in the clutch, in playoffs, and the defense that he's been playing, I just don't think that he's getting enough credit as opposed to if it was someone else that they would have like less expectations of. He's playing
Yeah.
hobbled, playing injured, and playing out of his mind, and defeating a lot of narratives that he was been given, right? And so,
Yep.
I'm just happy for Luka, man.
That's a great point as well on his field goal attempts, because like, yeah, it didn't even necessarily register for me like that he attempted that few of shots.
Yeah,
Because we've seen games where he's jacked up like 15 threes, like just threes alone. It'll be
Yeah.
like 3 of 15, and you're just like, dude, please, like not that many. When you've missed 12, it's too much. Stop it.
Yeah.
But yeah, being able to control the game the way he did, really, really impressive stuff. And I think I'm hoping, I don't know in terms of guys that are irritants to the same level of like Dort or whatever, but I'm hoping he'll do a little bit better job kind of keeping composure here, because it really felt like a lot in this series, especially as it went on, that he was just like every play, even when he was getting the bucket, I was like half expecting him to get teed up, because the frustration, like looking for something. And I mentioned this earlier, but I think it was like 9 minutes and change left in the fourth quarter. He hit a pull-up jumper over Dort, and was turned to the official and was like slapping his forearm, calling for it. And the camera cuts to Dirk, who's like going from like cheering and clapping to like immediately stopping, and like that stern parent basically yelling at him like, cut the shit, essentially. And I don't remember Luka really complaining after that. So it's like, I don't think Dirk would ever do it, because he's earned his time to ride off in the sunset and be with his family. But if you could find any sort of way to put Dirk on at least the bench, if not the coaching staff, in like a Tyson Chandler type way, like I feel like that's the one guy that Luka really listens to and like has full admiration of, and could help reel him in a little bit with that. But you work with it as you can. You just got to make sure Dirk's on the sideline or in the front row for the big games at least.
One takeaway that I don't think it's been mentioned enough. With 20 seconds to go, you're down 1.
Yep.
Normally you get Luka taking the last shot, right?
Step back 3 or something from the top.
Step back 3, step back 2. And normally like you're questioning like the play, like, oh, this is a bad play. But before, leading up to that, they got PJ going. He had like 0 points going into the fourth, right?
Yep.
But Luka noticed, and I love that he noticed it, because he noticed when he would drive and then do a spin move on Dort.
Yeah.
Help was coming because he was deep into the paint or deep into the box. And I've always been saying Luka needs to post up more. Luka needs to be in the paint more and work out of there, because they're always going to send help. It don't matter who it is, unless it's a center that he's posting up, they're always going to send help. And whenever he would spin on Dort, because Luka's like, 4 inches taller than him, bigger than him, stronger than him, they're going to send help. And he saw that. He saw that SGA kept biting, and he did the same move. He spun off of him. He knew SGA was coming, kicked it out to PJ. And I just wanted to salute Luka for that. Instead of forcing a shot, doing a step back, he was looking for someone else. And I think that says a lot about him as a player, where he's at in his maturity stage and his IQ, and being able to identify what they were doing and make it a part of a last successful shot. And I was impressed with how he handled that situation with 20 seconds to go. And again, I know he's 25 years old. I know he's been in crazier arenas, and last night I felt like it was a crazy arena, but he's been in crazy arenas, and the composure, the wherewithal to be able to pull that off, I just thought it was amazing, man.
Yep. No, everything about it, the response and the everything from it was fantastic. I loved, like you said, the possession, not settling for a deep 3 or some form of step back, but trusting his teammates and doing that. Huge. Absolutely huge. And then credit, of course, to PJ, like, not a strong free throw shooter. I'm amazed with how that game was officiated. I really thought they were gonna like say like, nah, no foul. And because we did blow the whistle, the Kyrie follow doesn't even count now. And it was gonna be a side out with 2.5 seconds. That's what I was bracing for. I was like, we're gonna settle for the step back 3 or like the almost half court 3, heavily contested. That's what it felt like it was going towards. And when they actually called it correctly, I was like, damn, all right, credit to PJ for not just immediately, like, if he had not double clutched, then yes, the fact that SGA gets his hand on the ball, it would have been, clean. It wouldn't have mattered that he hit his arm after the fact, but because he held on to it and double clutched, he was able to move the ball away from SGA's hand, which made the hand go from blocking, capping the top of the ball basically, to raking across the arm. just absolutely incredible there from him. And then to have the stones to go to the line and convert is just fantastic.
You know, what was impressive about all that is that even in the free throws, he could have missed those free throws, right? But what was more crazier about how you talked about how the refs could have screwed us, that charge against Hardy, that was a charge. Yeah, he went through the man's body.
I felt like Luka had a charge that got overturned too.
That too.
Yeah.
I look. When I'm watching like the games on playback where we talk Mavs or I'm on any other site watching the games or at a bar, and when you watch the games on TV, you have a different perspective. I feel like you're able to kind of handle your emotions better. At the game, DDP, I was at the game last night. I was beyond frustrated. I was so agitated, so annoyed.
Yeah.
It was different, man. It was different. And so you're seeing the replays live. Obviously, there's more emotions because you're in the arena filled with everybody.
Sure.
We're all reacting to the same thing at the same time. And then for them to still overturn these calls or keep them against us, I was like, whatever, right? And it just felt like OKC always had like 5 challenges a game. But for them to give us that call, which was called correctly, I was actually surprised, to be honest. TMP.
Yeah. What up, boys? What up?
What's good?
What's up, TMP?
So
I feel like we just need to start turning these into round tables every so often.
That's genius. I love that. So TGK, are you basically the hero? Are we giving you all the credit for being in the AAC last night?
Hey man, I'm the one that came up with the vlog. I'll take the credit. I know everybody else was there. You had Mavs Marie.
Cool.
You had a lot of other like big Twitter names out there and YouTubers, but you know, unless they release a vlog for the people, you know, no. But I'll take the credit. I'll take the credit.
Oh, I was worried at one point when you said like, if they overturn this, I'm leaving. I was like, no, we need to be like loud there. We need your energy with it. We can't have people checking out.
Yeah, someone asked me like, did you leave? Because they actually overturned it. I was like, no, I'm lying. I'm not gonna leave this game.
No, dude, that's awesome. Well, how was it in the arena? Did you may have already answered that. What was it like in the arena? Was it loud? Was it crazy?
Yeah, like the vlog. I hope the vlog captured everything because I try to record it from the perspective of all right. So let me put it like this: the vlog was for those that can't attend those games or people that are like outside of the country that are Mavs fans. Right. I try to film it so they can kind of like live fully vicariously through it. But to me, that game was way more intense. It was loud as hell. I've been to a specific game, classic game. It was Cavs and Pacers 2018 Game 5, where LeBron hit that 3 to win the game.
Yeah, dang.
That was nuts, right? And that was like probably the greatest game I ever attended. But last night's game took that by a mile. Wow. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but it was so intense in that arena. That fourth quarter was like, you know, when you have an outer body experience, like you're about to black out or pass out.
Yeah.
When DJJ hit that shot on Chet and he got fouled on, then called a foul, I was like, oh man, I'm seeing black dots there. We're just screaming. Like it was insane, man. Like I lost my mind, bro.
I was so worried when the Thunder then were able to get the lead after that, like including that like dead ball foul essentially. Because I was like, don't waste that shot by Derrick Jones Jr. Like that gave us a 5-point lead with a minute 11. Like don't take that away from us in what should have been like, oh, that was the moment, and instead like we lose the game and don't get another point or something. So I was so happy they were able to respond and at least take the lead back at the foul line. That honestly, to me, that's almost better because with the narrative that they lost game 4, the fact that it was free throws that cost them this series in 5, to have free throws be what sealed the series ultimately, especially dealing with the officiating throughout the series they have in this game in particular, was just very fitting. It almost felt like it built more into the team's overall like resilience. Like, okay, that tough-mindedness of like, okay, that might have cost us before, but now we've slayed that demon and now we've answered that. So now we're going to be more confident going forward with that.
Oh, that's a great point, man. It almost has like a poetic sort of touch to it, right? It's this idea of like every championship team or most championship teams have to like have these mountains that they overcome, right? They have to overcome these monsters, these giants that are set before them. And the Mavs just keep overcoming each obstacle, right? Like I said something earlier on Twitter X this morning, and I was just like, hey, listen, like Mavs beat the 4th seed in 6. Mavs beat the number 1 seed in 6. These aren't series that are going to 7, right?
Yeah.
These series are, I mean, that needs to be said. I'm not saying you got to stress it at every point, but like, let's just at least acknowledge we were not favored in these series and it didn't go the full 7. And so like, that's decisive series winning. That's good basketball because neither the Clippers nor the Thunder played bad basketball, right? Like they were playing good ball for the most part. The Mavs just had that defensive answer and timely enough scoring, right? The defense is just stifling and our opponents couldn't overcome it. Hey, I don't know. I want to give what you give. I won't give my piece on this. What do y'all think now that we're through the series? What's just like y'all's quick snapshot of SGA? Like just Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Who is he to you? What is he?
Go ahead, DDP.
I'm 100% a believer in him. I mean, we can talk about like the foul merchant stuff, and that's very valid, 100% valid. But at the same time, I also understand that like, if you're a guy that's able to get that advantage and you're in that situation, more often than not, a guy is going to utilize it. He's going to take advantage of it. I mean, we've seen that across the league, like whether it's Harden. I mean, Luka has that label and at times will do it, but not to as shameless of a degree. But in terms of just the tough, the footwork, the big shot ability and all of that, phenomenal. I could not have higher respect. And I already felt like coming into the series, that I had really high marks for him. But at this point, I was blown away by how he performed. I did talk earlier defensively. This was not a good series for him. And that is an area that I think is kind of being overshadowed a little bit. So that's an area that I think he needs to improve, even though he never gets that discredit. I don't know who it was. He got 2 third-place votes for Defensive Player of the Year. I feel like that's insane watching how the series unfolded, because whether he was on PJ or Derrick Jones Jr., they were feasting.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something to work on. But in terms of the offense, in terms of like being the guy for them, 100%. Could not have a better impression of him.
Yeah, no, I think SGA, he's smooth, man. He's smooth, a smooth push offer. Like he's great at pushing off. But it's a smooth shot, man. In general, I just feel like when he doesn't foul bait, it's a pretty game that he has. But when he foul baits, I'm like, oh man, come on, just like you're shooting 100% from the mid range, like just keep doing that. And what's funny is, well, let me stay on topic. I think Shai's great. He's like a year older than Luka,
7 months,
7 months older than Luka. So when these national pundits were discrediting the Mavs for the win by saying OKC Thunder were just too young for the moment, I think that's disrespectful to OKC. When you got Kyrie saying, "Oh,
they
this
are the
is
second
like
youngest team in the league," though.
This series was the 2 youngest teams, right? In the playoffs?
Well,
in the playoffs at this point, yeah.
But I just feel like it's discrediting saying that they weren't ready for the moment when you got Kyrie saying that this is the toughest series he's ever been a part of.
I know. I saw
that goes to credit the Thunder because they were a damn good team. They showed up. SGA made clutch shots. Chet gave them the lead. It's not like they didn't show up. It's not like they didn't try to win or anything like that. But SGA, I think he's a great player. He led his team to that moment. They could have won this game. They could have forced a game 7. They were ready for the moment. It's just the Mavericks were a little bit better. But Chet, but SGA, he's on the way, man. He's on the way.
Oh man, absolutely.
Well, he's already there.
And I think that's fair for sure. Because the Thunder, as a team, they're very young and inexperienced, but there's a lot to like about what they're building. There's also an area where I feel like they missed an opportunity to go for it. The Hayward thing at the deadline, it got a lot, and I thought it was a good move, but the way they utilized him and all that, he had 46 minutes in the playoffs, took only 3 shots and scored 0 points. Like, you had clear needs on this team. This team was always in like the top 3 run the whole season. It's not like they made a late surge to get up to number 1. So the fact that Presti basically just decided that I'm not going to go for it this year, even though we've got all these assets. I'm just going to kind of wait back and see like where we're at, stress test and see where we're at in the offseason. I think they missed a prime opportunity to make a run. Like if they had actually addressed something with a real big or something, then I think this could have been a different series.
Yeah. And I don't have the list in front of me, but they have enough assets to go get a guy.
No, they could.
Like if they just want to go buy a guy, yeah, they can just
team right now.
Yeah, they can go trade a whole bunch of number ones and some quality. Like they can go get a guy with the treasure trove that Presti has. It's the problem is those GMs, and Presti's maybe the poster boy for it. They just play their game. They just treasure their little way of hoarding. They're like the troll or a dragon with his treasure or whatever the idea is. Like they just don't want to let go of it. And you're like, no, dude, now's the time, right?
Yep.
I hope he keeps delaying, right? But I mean, they've got the pieces.
I think it's like 19 first-round picks over the next 7 seasons or something like that. I'm like,
he's just been collecting them.
Like,
they might as well just change one of these years the draft to the 2026 Oklahoma City Thunder NBA draft.
The Thunder they decided this was the year they wanted the first 5 picks of the draft. So here we go.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. Like y'all got to do something with these picks, man. You just you can't have more than 15 players on a team, so figure something out.
TGK, I want to give you props for that point. Let's recognize the Thunder came to play, right? I thought in Game 4 where the Mavs I thought the Thunder were just begging them to put them out of their misery, and the Mavs just said like, no, we'd like to not make free throws tonight. I thought that was the Thunder's weak game where they looked mentally a little shaky, and then they ended up winning. And then the Mavs obviously won by 12 in Game 5, and kind of big brothered them like, hey, listen, we are the better team here on your home court. We're the better team.
Oh, yeah.
And but then like last night they came and they were throwing haymakers, man. Like last night, I think, and here's the thing. I'm obviously a Mavs fan, but like I think you tip your cap to a team and to an opponent that came to play, right? Their lives were on the line, their season was on the line, and they showed up. And as the Mavs fan in me, I want to go, and that makes us look even better because we clutched it out, right? That means, hey, we're not beating cream puffs here, right? We're beating tough teams. Like the stat that's floating around, the Denver Nuggets have yet to beat a 50-win team in the playoffs. Well, the Mavs have now beaten 2 in just this run this year, right? And so, like, because we won 50 and the Clippers were ahead of us, and then 57 for the Thunder, right?
Let me add to that, TMP, with the whole idea of the Thunder showed up. Say PJ doesn't double clutch that shot.
Oh my God!
And they win. Are they saying, oh, the Thunder weren't ready for this, the limelight for this situation? They're not saying that. They're saying, oh, the Mavericks just didn't have enough in the tank, or whatever the case would be. Like, come up with a different excuse, different narrative. They showed up. They got. It was unfortunate for them that PJ double clutched, but it was fortunate for us that he did. Right. And he had the clutch up free throws, and he made free throws in that crucial pressure moment situation right there, and he did it. And I think there needs to be credit to that. Like he had no points going into the fourth and was like the difference in the victory. So it's like, okay, it's crazy.
All right, so I know I'm being a fanboy about this, but like, what was it like in the AC as PJ was stepping up before he shoots those free throws? What was the aura in the room, to use that word? What was the feeling? What was the vibe?
We were a little too loud. So when you see the vlog, I'm like, shut up, quiet on set. Everybody was like waving to, calm everybody down. And so the buzz, it was such a big buzz. Then it kind of died down a little bit. It got a little quiet. You can still hear chatter. He goes to his free throws. Then pandemonium. Everybody goes crazy. Yeah. But you can tell Kyrie and Luka were leading the people to quiet down. And
shut up. Okay.
Everybody around us was like, shut up. And just and no one took offense to it. So that's how you know we're all locked in for the Mavs, man.
Help me remember. Neither one of those first 2 were clean, right? Didn't they both kind of roll around?
They bounced around.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Man. What an insane way to close out a series, dude. So incredible.
When he made the first one, I felt relieved then, because I was like, if he misses the first one, it's gonna get in his head.
Right.
But when the first one dropped in, I was like, he's gonna make at least one more of these. And if he makes this one, then you miss it because they're out of timeouts. Just get the clock going, and they executed it perfectly. Like, absolutely the best way they could have done it. But getting the first one, that's when I was like, okay, a sigh of relief. Hopefully he knocks down one of these 2. I think he will. But the hard one's out of the way.
Oh man, that was crazy.
Yeah.
That was a tighten the sphincter moment right there.
And for him, like, he had foul trouble early in the game, and that just kind of kept him out of a rhythm. So like he had like 29, 27, and 22 the games before that. and then foul trouble, a problem here. So out of rhythm, not really getting any opportunities. And then I think his first 3 came with like 6 minutes left. And then he hit another one a couple minutes after that. So to end with 8 points, all of them being huge. Awesome story for him. Like, I feel like we've talked about it, but like, I want to see somebody do like an in-depth piece on like the hometown kid coming back, his first ever playoff experience, and just what he's been able to power. And maybe that's a story you wait for until you see where this thing ends up. Because you got to know how good the story is going to be or how to frame it. But just an awesome story for that. I don't remember who it was that had the tweet. I mentioned it earlier, but like to go from like almost a little over a year ago, where when he was still on Charlotte, effectively ending our season, and then a year later, he's what's powering us into the conference finals at the line. There is just an awesome kind of story at that point.
That's incredible. And to be a 25-year-old with no playoff experience, to step into the line in Game 6 to win your team in the second round, to send your team to the Western Conference Finals, like that is incredible. And that's a story that we've got. Like, I mean, because D Jones doesn't have like a lot of playoff experience, right? Lively obviously has none before. I mean, he's a rookie. PJ had none. Gafford had none. So it's not like this is a team of just proven vets, right? This is a lot of our rosters. Like, this is their step into the playoffs too, which is just incredible how well they've been performing.
Yeah.
And just to give you some insight, whenever the game was over, the Jumbotron went straight to PJ, and PJ immediately went to his stand on business shrug. Yes. And so they show it on the screen, and like there was a secondary like standing ovation when they showed him on the screen doing that. So it was just one of those. It was like a perfect night, man. A perfect night. I think for PJ, obviously that narrative of him coming home, playing for home, you could just tell it means something to him even more. Like I'm pretty sure it would be for anybody else that plays for the home team or the favorite team that they saw growing up as a kid. You could just tell that he's playing with that different sense of like passion for the team and for the city too. So I'm just happy PJ's here, man. It's been an awesome ride, and I hope it just continues to go.
That standing on business thing, in putting it in like wrestling terms, it's like it's that living the gimmick sort of thing. Like he absolutely embodies that that entire aura, that entire gimmick, because it's like, he's striking that pose all the time, and it's very appropriate that now in 2 rounds the opponent has tried to basically spoof that, whether it was Paul George in game 4. Or the Thunder after beating Dallas in Game 4, going back home. They did the same thing at the airport when the fans were there greeting them. I think it was Jalen Williams that did it. I don't remember, but did the PJ pose to get a pop from the crowd. And it's like, how did that go for you? Both times right after that, you lost the next 2 games, and PJ still was showing up and making plays. So I love that. It's not just like that one moment or whatever. He knows that other teams are going to try and come back at him on it, and he just keeps still answering the call. He still keeps doing that thing, even though in Game 4 there was a moment where somebody tried to get at Lively and kind of get in his face a little bit, and PJ's still right there striking a different similar expression, just like, he's living this gimmick. Like he is absolutely the enforcer, absolutely the big dog on this team, and whether he's got 20 points or he's got 4 points, he doesn't care. He's going to roll with it, and he's going to protect his guys, which I love that entire vibe from that. That's something this team has missed sorely for the longest time.
Yeah. I love that he's owning it. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, TGK, go.
No, you're good. He's filling in the void that Dorian Finney-Smith had. He's filling in the void, and he's doing a great job of it. And I don't think people are like, oh, we miss Dorian Finney-Smith. Of course we miss him, but now you got someone that's younger, has a bigger wingspan, better defensive capabilities, dare I say, and has that dog in him just like Dorian Finney-Smith has. So we literally recuperated everything that we lost in the Kyrie trade and got younger and better. Like it's been a whirlwind of a season, man. So salute to PJ.
Plus, the idea that Dorian Finney-Smith would have ever led the team in scoring 3 straight playoff games would have been unthinkable. Yeah. But for PJ, it's just like, he's dropping those buckets,
That was wild too, because I remember Followell talking about how since Luka and Kyrie started teaming up, games where they were both playing, that when PJ had that 29-point game, it was the first time either Luka or Kyrie did not lead the team in scoring. And then the fact that it happened, like you said, like 3 straight times is just like crazy.
Yeah, it's wild, man. Yeah, I mean, his offensive showing in Game 6 was a little rattling because we've been. I don't know about y'all. I just was starting to expect him to perform, right? Like, okay, this is a guy who's going to be hitting big looks, big shots, and the offensive game just wasn't there. Didn't seem like he was getting a ton of looks either, but
There's the foul trouble, I think, for the most
foul
part.
trouble dragged him out of the first half, absolutely. But yeah, when he started hitting those shots in the fourth, like it's hard for a guy, I feel like, and I played competitive ball, but not at a high level, not in the college or pros. But, it's hard for a guy to go from having a really crappy game to all of a sudden he just started like coming through in the fourth quarter, which is just like, man, that shows some fortitude, right? That shows a guy who's not getting down on himself. Because like earlier in the season, I might be totally wrong. And so PJ fans out there, if you know better than me, like if you followed him back at the Hornets, you definitely know his game better than me. But like, it seemed like he was getting down on himself for a stretch there in the regular season where I was like, he seems like a great guy. He's going to be a bulldog. He's going to defend, but he seems like he emotionally might be beating himself up. And in the playoffs, like he's just been like a mental vice. Like he has been strong. And so like him having a rough game, and throughout three quarters, offensively at least, and then coming up huge in the fourth, that's just something that should not be overlooked, right? Like I know we're going to talk about Luka, we're going to talk about D-Live, we're going to talk about Kyrie's second half in Game 6. We're going to talk about those things as kind of the thematic storylines of Game 6, but PJ has to be discussed, right? Not for nothing less than those free throws, but like he also hit 2 threes? I think it was 2 threes, right? In the fourth. Yeah. I think he was like 2 for 5 or 2 for 6 or something like that. And both were in the fourth and both were huge buckets. And like he has to be a consideration when we're talking about the heroes of Game 6.
Yeah. 1000%, especially when he was going 0 points into the quarter. Like, there's a lot to be said when you're like kind of frozen out of the game, like you're iced out of the game, so to speak. Like I was in the game watching and I'm like, wait up, PJ has 0 points. Like I'm looking at the Jumbotron. It's a little bit difficult to watch the game in the arena from that aspect to see, stats live as they're going on. But to see PJ be able to respond in the way that he did in the fourth quarter, he waited for his turn, so to speak, and the man delivered, bro. Like I just think it was amazing, man. Amazing.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, it's an awesome performance all around. The grittiness and toughness of this, I think Kyrie's leadership can't be understated at all. Like his impact on it, like Lively stepping to the free throw line, my entire vibe and energy when he goes to the foul line is just worlds different ever since, you had the funny moment with Chet chasing him around, trying to foul him. And Kyrie kind of pulls him aside, like, look, don't do that. Go to the line, knock your free throws down, and let's close this out. Like, you got this.
Dare I say Lively's automatic from the free throw line?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
oh no, I would love it.
The vibe. I expect him to make these free throws now. Like there was a big moment late in that game. He went to the line again, and I was just like, oh, Lively, all right, he's got this. And to be fair, I think he split in that particular trip, but it's just a total different vibe now, just in the span of that. And that's kind of like getting back to what I was talking about earlier with the free throw thing, like slaying that particular demon, being able to do that, like showing that confidence, that leadership, and then that guy is now empowered where he's not suddenly like struggling in that area. So maybe as a team, the fact that they're able to go, I think it was like 17 of 24 at the line here. Yeah, 17 of 24 for 71% for the Mavericks in this game. Being able to do that as a team collectively, again, after the disaster of Game 4's free throw shooting, and having some of these guys that aren't strong free throw shooters delivering as well, that's got to be something big for confidence, and especially to clutch out the series with free throws. That just feels almost poetic.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, DDP, because like D-Live and Gafford for a stretch there were just instant hands over your face as they're going to the line there for a while. You're just like, oh no, this is going to be very bad.
Yeah,
this could be an 0 for 2 at best, a 1 for 2. And now they step to the line, specifically D-Live, and I'm just like, okay, young man, like I'm feeling better, right? I have a more of a calm sense. I think he's also a little more calm. He seems to be taking his time a little bit more. I'd love to see him develop as a former shooter, I'd love to see him develop a little bit more of a fluid free throw routine or something, but like he's not taking the dribble, and that's just weird for me because like rhythm dribbles were really important to me. And so like, listen, everyone can come up with their own routine, right? And what works for them as shooters. But like, that's such a weird concept to me to not even take a single dribble. He just grabs it, he lines up the ball, and then he shoots it. And you're like, hey, he's got beautiful form, especially for a 7-footer, right?
Yep.
Like I know we all are salivating, drooling a little bit over the corner threes we watch him shoot in practice. Maybe that's next year or a year or two away. But like, he's got great form. Like whoever
that's
taught
a
him
shot clock
his stroke,
expiring away. That's what that is.
whoever taught him his form, I want to give Mama some credit, but also I'm sure his coaches along the way some credit. They did a good job, right?
Yeah.
And so he's got natural touch. And so there's no good reason for him not to be a solid free throw shooter. I'm not saying he's got to be, Ray Allen or something, but for a big man shooting in the 70s, that's acceptable, right?
Yeah.
And there's just no reason to think next season he won't be shooting in the low mid 70s.
Yeah.
You don't have Shaq at the line for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so wild, like the big man prospects that came out just the last 2 drafts, like
oh my gosh,
having like the 2 unicorn types with Wemby and Chet, but then now you have this, and obviously Lively's not the same model or whatever, but a lot of great big man talent has popped out of the draft the last 2 years, so that's pretty exciting times for that. And then you compare it to like when people now look at like that Luka JB draft and all that, they're like, man, that was like the draft for point guards. And this one, this one's kind of similar. Like the last couple of years, like suddenly the big man prospects coming out. Of course, this next draft is going to be really bad, but Lively would have been the top pick if he was coming out next year.
1000% for sure.
Yeah.
If they knew what they knew, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Hell, to TGK's point earlier, if you redrafted this past year's draft, he'd be, I don't know about number 2, but he'd certainly be like top 3.
Oh, can we play that exercise? Who would we have definitely taken above D Live? Right,
Wemby.
Obviously Wemby, of course.
Wemby.
What about Brandon Miller? Buckets, man.
Yeah, maybe.
What's more valuable in the league?
It depends on the team, right? Because
of course it relies on roster construction and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's what it does.
It's not like the NFL draft where you just take the best player available regardless of your needs. NBA, you got to think a little bit more on the fit.
Yeah. But just in standalone, and I'm not a draft expert or anything like that, though I played one a few years ago on podcasts. The idea is I would take D Live in isolation over either of the Thompson twins. Like, and those guys I like those guys a lot. Yeah. I think those guys are really interesting, like utility, super utility guys. The thing is, I think Lively could be a star. Yeah. Like, or just underneath a star is, and like one of the most elite defensive backline presences in the league.
I could see him being a defensive player of the year. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's incredibly valuable.
Go ahead.
Can we talk about that? This is a rookie, doing what he's doing, and he's in a closing lineup of a Game 6 in the NBA playoffs. And I think we have to like sit back a little bit and be like, he's a rookie who's just going through all of these personal things at the same time, and is still composed, still locked into the like. These are things that you really can't put I would say like a value on or like a label on. Like this is unheard of to be
hard to quantify.
Honest. Yeah, there you go. It's unheard of, and I just think what he's doing right now in the moment is incredible, and he got a lot of praise after last night. I think they had about 15 or 14 more shots than us at halftime, and I was like, we got to kind of close that gap because we're not going to win if they still have more than 15 shots than us. And he gave us those extra opportunities on extra shots, and they only had 10 more. So we were able to close the gap by 5 shots, and those 5 shots ended up being the difference, to be completely honest. But without D Live in the second half, that plus 26 doesn't exist,
Yeah. I saw somewhere, and I haven't seen it verified, but that he had the all-time highest plus minus of a rookie in a playoff series ever at plus 71. I haven't seen that verified yet, but I did see a couple different sources putting that out there, and it's like, I don't know for sure if that's the case, but if it's not, I would at least believe it. His impact was so huge to this thing, and before you guys came on earlier, I was kind of talking about like, I know that Dallas was going to take him at 10 had they not done the OKC thing to trade back, and that's why they take him at 12. OKC ends up getting Case and Wallace out of it, who I do think is going to be a very nice defensive 3-and-D guard for them as well. But it's like, it's kind of bittersweet, or for them, it's probably just a nightmare that they kind of gave us the ammunition tooling because they helped us facilitate those, or at least one of those trades at the deadline, where they helped us swing the deal so that not only were we getting still getting Lively, but we were also able then to add Omax into the mix. Like, they've kind of uniquely tooled their own dismantling, months and months later. That's just kind of like, oh, that's got to be an extra little sting to that for them, because we were not in position to do anything before these moves.
Oh yeah, the mad scientist Presti hates that. He's gotta hate that so much. He thinks he's the chess master, right? And some of his moves don't look so good in retrospect right now. Yeah, just that. What did you say it was plus 71 DDP
Plus 71
or something like
for the series?
And think about that, guys. These games were close.
Mm-hmm.
These were not like, oh well, the Mavs won in 4 blowouts. No, these were close, hard fought games. And so for D Live to have a number like that attached to him at the end of the series means when he was on the floor, the Mavs were rolling, right? The Mavs were stomping. I mean, I'm sure there was also times where it was tough and hotly contested, right? But like overall, that's what that number means, is that the Mavs were overwhelming the Thunder with D Live on the floor. And I don't know about you, but that is kind of what my eyes showed me. It's not that Gafford was horrendous. It's just that the team, and especially the defense, was not as solid in his minutes. You put D Live out there, and then the defense kind of seems to settle into that groove. And then all of a sudden, all the attacks to the paint and all the nice little floaters and all of that seems to kind of get pushed away, right? Now all of a sudden they're taking those little floaters from a couple feet further away from the rim, and now all of a sudden the middies don't go uncontested, right? And now all of a sudden on the switch, the big can stay with the guard a little bit better because D Live has quicker feet than Gafford. Gafford's a better shot blocker, I would say, than D Live at this point, but D Live's better at everything else defensively. And so like those numbers are just incredible for, like TGK said, for a 20-year-old kid. Like that's it's crazy.
I pulled up the advanced lineup analytics right now.
Yeah.
And with the starting lineup with Gafford, the 6 games against OKC, 60 minutes, offensive rating of 113, almost 114, a defensive rating of 125. So there were a minus 11.7, right?
That's right. Yeah.
But with Lively, with the same starters, 6 games, 51 minutes, an offensive rating of 105. But check this out, a defensive rating of 76.1.
Wow.
A plus minus net rating of 29.8.
Yeah.
Right.
29.8. And then there's other lineups he in where he's a plus 23 with Josh Green instead of D Jones, plus 23. Then with Tim Hardaway and not D Jones, with D Live, there's still a plus 8. Like, Dereck Lively has had a massive impact on this team, especially on the 5-man lineups as well.
Great stats.
When he got drafted, I almost immediately was basically calling him, saying he's going to be Tyson 2.0 in that he's very Tyson Chandler like impact, except he's also, I also think he's going to be able to eventually add at least a corner 3 to his game, just a little bit of a shooting touch that Tyson never had, just in the the era of basketball that he came from, different. And it was one of those things, I remember that was a more controversial take at the time. People were like, he hadn't done anything. What made you think from what he did in college? I'm like, I'm just saying what I see with the eyeball test, what I see with the ability that he has and what the shooting touch and everything looks like. He's not even tried until the last couple of years to add any sort of offensive game. You have the right people developing him. He could absolutely add that. And now you're already seeing on a huge stage, even by Tyson standards, just phenomenal impact on the defensive side and how he's bringing that in. Just imagine when he's got some seasoning on him and all of a sudden he's kind of anchoring the defense and kind of calling the rotations from the back like Tyson and stuff would do. Just phenomenal to be able to have that. And another thing that we haven't said here, they got to find a way to keep Derrick Jones Jr. in the offseason. That to me is one of the biggest things, because looking at this, just the plus minuses here, Lively plus 26, we said that. Derrick Jones Jr. was a plus 18. And other than that, everybody else is basically single digits or even in the negatives on the plus minus rating. So it's just there's your 2 stars, your 2 guys that helped decide this here. It wasn't just other guys had big moments too, but those were your 2 X factors OKC just did not have an answer for when their season was on the line.
Right. That's a great point. Yeah, what is it? CBA, my man CBA Mavs was saying that we'll have to shed some salary to get him his max potential offer, because there's no doubt. I mean, like I don't know the rest of the leagues what their salary situation is like, but someone's going to come along with a bag for D Jones. Someone's going to come along and go, "Hey, we saw you in the playoffs. How would you like this money?"
Yeah.
And he wants to stay in Dallas, and it won't be extravagant. It's not going to be some insane, no one's going to back up the Brinks for him, right? But it's going to be significant money, and he wants to stay in Dallas. And if the Mavs can get close to that, I bet he will stay in Dallas, because he's found his spot, right? He's experiencing that Luka bump, that Kyrie bump. He's going to get the most open looks, the best looks of his lifetime playing next to Luka and Kyrie. And I think he's a thoughtful guy, right? He's a sensitive, thoughtful guy. And I think he loves being here. And so if we can shed some salary and get a little creative, I bet Nico sees his value.
Yeah, I think it's gonna take a THJ deal getting done to shed that salary so you can keep him.
That's
but
why
then
it's
also
actually brilliant that Tim Hardaway's game went in the tank after he finally had the one burner performance.
Yeah, he gave us he helped us win a game, 17 points.
He had one burner check. I said, you better cash that check while it's still good, because it'll bounce tomorrow. And it immediately has gone in the tank since then.
Yeah, that's tough, man.
Sorry, TG, I didn't mean to step on what you were saying.
No, you're good. You're good. I was just saying that it's gonna take Dylan him to open up that cap space that you want to be able to give Derrick Jones something where he would want to stay with here.
So TGK, that's what I like to call a win-win.
Yeah. It definitely is a win-win. You get more Jaden Hardy out of that as well.
Hey, there you go. And I'd like to see a little Omax development next year, if you don't mind. I'd like that.
Yeah. Hardy's been kind of an interesting thing, because I do think, as we talk about like the pros and cons of Kidd, I do think it was a very good move the last two games going to Hardy and leaning on him, not just because it limits Hardaway's performance out there. And again, when you had that one possession where he hits the side of the backboard and then he like overshoots the rim from straight on to hit the like opposite corner of the backboard, basically, that was kind of to me like all right, wrap it up. We're done here with this, with him being in this rotation. Like, we need to move on from this. Hardy didn't shoot the ball great in this series. I think he was just 1 of 5. But the pace he played with, the playmaking he showed, the chemistry with like Derrick Jones or with Dereck Lively, the other Derrick, fantastic stuff. And I feel like if you look at his stats, just like we talked about a little bit with Josh Green, like if you look at the box score for him, it's never going to tell the story of his impact. I feel like Hardy had a similar type impact, but what people more casually saw was like the missed shots or a turnover or something like that. Like they focus on that and they think like, that's not the right time to play him. He's a liability here. You need to take him off. I'm like, he's no more a liability defensively than Hardaway. And what he's bringing to the table offensively is something that they needed. And it was a change of pace that caught OKC by surprise. So I think you absolutely got to keep leaning on him that way. Of course, I've said all season, I wanted him to be a bigger part of this thing. I was frustrated post deadline how much his role reduced.
Yeah, he kind of disappeared from the regular rotation there, and that big run to close out the season. Let me, because I'm a noted THJ not fan. I don't want to say hater because that sounds so mean, and he's a Maverick, and I want him to make every shot he ever takes. But I've been on board of saying like I would like him off the team for about 3.5 years now, and so like anytime you can give Hardy those minutes, I'm down for it. Because Hardy, and by the way, let me just give THJ credit. He had that one great game, 17 points, and he made some really nice passes in this series. A couple nice alley-oop passes in particular. Made a couple like nice little leaners, little floaters. But Hardy can dribble the basketball at an NBA level, right? Yep. THJ cannot. And so if all THJ is doing is catching and shooting or swing passing, I'm okay with that. But in the instances where you're going to need him to bring up the ball or to have dribbling competency, he doesn't have that. Not at an NBA level. And we're playing with the big boys now. Everyone defends, right? Everyone can defend.
Yeah.
And someone like him who's not a good defender and can't dribble the ball is just so much of a liability. So like your shooting has to be at an absolute premium to have any value on the floor, where I would say Hardy can at least dribble at an NBA guard level. And he has shown very recently that his willingness to play, make, and pass is a nice little skill or a nice little touch. He has a little bit of chemistry with Gafford and Lively, and so like I would give all of his minutes. If we're just giving up on Exum, I know we haven't talked about him. If we're just giving up on Exum, which I don't want to, right? I don't. I mean, Kid knows better than me, like for sure what's going on in Exum's head. But Exum was so valuable for us as a third ball handler all season, and the highs and the lows. He was so valuable for us. So, I mean, if we're giving up on Exum, I want Hardy to have all those minutes as opposed to Hardaway getting any of them.
And if I could just add to the Hardy narrative is, if you remember the previous season, the disaster season, at the end of the season, Jaden Hardy was one of your most reliable shooters. Anytime he was wide open and Luka caught him open, he was going to hit that shot. He was a very reliable shooter. And I just found it kind of odd that we didn't kind of want to build on that this season and still win with THJ. I understand, Jason Kidd and his philosophies, but I thought with a second-year player, you would try to implement him a little bit more because when you saw THJ and what Hardy were doing towards the end of the season, I was like, damn, the rookie's getting it. Like he's able to knock down a wide open shot, and Hardy was able to have moments in this series, and that's big for him as well. And I think it'll be big for him moving forward into next season. But we don't want to look that far ahead. We need him next series,
Sure,
yeah. I mean, the Mavs deserve a lot of credit for how they've developed Hardy because we know that he can be an instant bucket. You send him down to the Legends, and he can pour in huge scoring performances. But I kind of like the way they've tried to fine tune his development a little bit, like in their assignments, having like specific kind of working with him on being more that playmaker, kind of orchestrating the offense a little bit. And so like we saw in the summer league, like his summer league performance was kind of ho-hum and everything. And that kind of had people kind of questioning, like, should they just sell high? And I was like, that's crazy to be saying that so fast. But looking at it, you saw they were just asking him to do stuff that wasn't to his strength, wasn't to his greatest resource. And this is where I think you're seeing that pay off, just that playmaking ability. Again, 1 of 5 in this. This is a game that, like last year, he as a rookie, he wouldn't have been put in this situation. But being 1 of 5 from the field, you wouldn't have necessarily had the confidence in him last year with his development point to be able to like make those plays off the dribble and set up guys for these alley-oop dunks and to make the right play, be decisive with the ball. That and one he got off of Chet was like big time. Like I love that. Now he missed the free throw, but that for me was like a huge thing because I was like, man, he didn't just settle for the 3 there either. Like you see, he's making the right read, the right play, and he's not playing afraid of the moment or anything like that. So everything they've done in his development's been great. I still want him to get more opportunity, but yeah, I think as long as they keep moving him along and he's going to be a bigger part of this next year, then I am fully on board with how they're handling it because I have seen that transformation in him where he's gone from just being like a one-trick pony, and it's a nice trick where he can light it up, but he's becoming more well-rounded now. And I think that speaks much better to his potential and the teams as a whole.
Yeah, one thing I would add is it doesn't always have to be a Hardy party to get quality minutes from Hardy, right? Like it doesn't have to be going bananas and hitting every pull-up J. Like no, he can just be a quality contributing role player, right? And that's awesome. And you're seeing, like, obviously he's so young, and often those guys have crazy egos. But when you're on the team with Luka and Kyrie, your ego probably gets automatically put in a little bit more check, right? And so, like, he's just accepted it. He's just excited. He's up there cheering. He's waving towels. He's high-fiving when guys are coming back to the bench. Like he is fully engaged, right? He's not. You can tell he's not sitting there on the bench going, "Man, I need shots. I need shots." Like he really is. And I would say this over the whole roster, right? Is that these are guys who want to contribute to winning, right? Like they've bought in. And that, my friends, goes back to the coaching. Whether you hate him or love him, the head coach gets credit for things like that. And even if you say, well, it's the assistant coaches, the head coach gets the credit, right? Yeah. And so, like, this team being bought in, you got to tip the cap to Jason Kidd.
Yep. No, 100% agree. Like, I've got my criticisms of Kidd and, like, game management at times, knowing when to call a damn timeout. But overall, like, yeah, what he's been able to do, how he's been able to get guys to buy in. And it's not even just like the young players and stuff like that. Like the way Kyrie has spoken of him has been so highly at times. And I obviously growing up, Kyrie, being from New Jersey and all that, like watched Kidd with the Nets and everything. So like he already had a lot of great admiration for him from that. But like even just him talking about him as a coach, saying like how impactful he's been essentially to that, and just keeping these guys like on board with the message, keeping consistent, getting them to kind of like buy into everything like that speaks volumes. Like as much as we might want to say like that we disagree with certain things, the strengths are strengths, and they are things guys resonate with. I didn't have on my bingo card kid being the player's coach, but I guess that's exactly what he is, because he's got a guy like Kyrie being fully bought in, and that's everything. Like that, if people want to look at one reason why he gets a new deal, if they're trying to set aside the 2 Western Finals appearances in 3 years, the fact that you got Luka and Kyrie bought in, that's your answer. Like that's as far as it needs to go.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I think a part of what he does drives the fans crazy, which is, he's not out there. He's so even keel. He's not out there. He's not out there after a bad loss going, our guys dropped the ball tonight. We didn't have it. He's always supporting his players. He's always got their back. As far as I can remember, he's almost never said anything too critical of an individual player to the press or the media. He's just, at least publicly, always had their back, right? And play in the media age, boy, the players get that, right? The players hear that. They know their coach is supporting them. And by the way, that's the kind of thing that gives the coach that much more power when he comes to you behind the scenes and chews your butt. He'll be like, well, I know this isn't going to get out. I know coach won't say this about me in public. He'll say this to my face or something like that.
Yeah. Hell, he'll also just put his foot in his mouth in a post-game presser so that the fans are mad at him instead. He'll just say some stupid shit where we're just like, there's no way you believe that. Like, there's no way. Talking about like the first round series where Harden gets like 3 straight floaters basically uncontested, and he's like, that's the shot we wanted him to have. Well, after he's hit 3 straight, maybe you should do something about
it. maybe like put your hand up. Maybe have a very tall man put his hand up and jump.
Maybe get Lively back in there and not Maxey right now.
That's not a Maxey moment, right? Maxey was great in that series, but that's not a Maxey moment.
Exactly. So he'll even fall on those grenades for his team sometimes, even if he's the one that lobbed the grenade.
Even his KFC comment. I don't know if you remember that one. Maybe put some KFC in his locker room and watch a film, and he gets a shot back. It's just like, all right, kid, whatever, man. Like, do you? It's whatever's working. It's working. Just go ahead. I just won't listen to your post game conferences. Like, I'll avoid it just so I could be okay.
I mean, I think it's funny that like he's like, sometimes I don't tell you all the truth, and I'm like, okay, all right. Like I'm. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I've never quite emotionally recovered from his introductory press conference when he said, "These kids today, they got all this new stuff like they call texting." I was like, okay, he's going with the old head thing, but then he said texting. I was like, Jason, you were literally
that's
in
your
the early part of your career when texting was around. This was a 90s thing. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I was expecting him to say like Instagram or like TikTok or something. He's like, no, texting. Like, oh my God. Like when he tries to be funny, he just comes off so corny. It's just like, oh my God, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, he's hilarious, man.
But overall, like I love the buy-in. I mean, I know the story. I know we're fans, and the story for any team that's gotten to the conference finals is look how bought in they are, look how together they are. I know that's the common theme for all these teams, but I also think it's common for a reason, right? The teams that make it this far, obviously they have to have insane talent, but they're the teams that have the best chemistry. They're the teams that are that enjoy playing together. They're the teams that have the best plan, and when he wasn't entirely joking all season when he's like, hey, Luka's the offense, Luka's the game plan.
Yeah.
Because a healthy Luka can just kind of do that in the regular season. I've seen him do it in the playoffs. But this team is together, man. They love it. And DDP, I think you said something earlier about Kyrie's leadership. That's a point I've been really meditating on, thinking on. Is I think this team is under the leadership of Coach Kidd as the highest level, right? But as far as the locker room, this is Kyrie's team, man. And I don't say that with any I love Luka. He's our best player, hands down. But like this is Kyrie's team. Like these guys adore Kyrie.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with him being the leader at all.
Heck no.
You could be the best player on the team, and it don't mean you have to be the leader. Like,
right.
I think right now Kyrie is like you saw his post game pressers. He was talking about he was feeling emotional and trying to keep his emotions in.
Yeah.
And then when they asked him about the Derrick Jones, PJ Washingtons, and Lively's, he was like, "Man, it's just beautiful." And then when he started talking, you could hear he was a little choked up because it matters to him that his team listens to him and that his team respond to him. And that he also enjoys the role. Like, I think this is probably I think he's having probably just as the most fun he's ever had in his career right now. And it shows, man. Like he has a different purpose and that purpose is coming through on the court and off the court. And I mean, as a Mavs fan, I'm happy in general, but I'm happy for Kyrie as well as the person.
I mean, it's the same position. He's in the same position right now that like LeBron was going back to Cleveland, right? 8 years older than the superstar teammate he's coming to play with. And in fact, might even be the exact same age as, not just the same age spread, maybe. But yeah, just in this sort of position, he's coming in, and it's like it's a sort of rebirth of forms for him, being able to kind of be welcomed with open arms by the team. They're able to play together, and like just the way that they fit and that they vibe and gel. I think it goes a long way even towards like repairing like the Luka perception, even though like, again, people have slept on it this whole time, but like people are saying like, well, how could Luka not have played with like KP? Or, you know, you see the revisionist history where like, oh, everyone says Luka never had anybody, but he had Porzingis and he had Brunson or whatever, and now look where they've gone since then. It's like, well, Brunson was never going to be that Brunson here outside of what we saw for that one postseason run. And KP was just never healthy, and he basically just quit on the team because he was done with Rick by the end.
And so he admitted it.
Yeah, and he admitted it too. That's the big
Talk
thing.
about how immature he was. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, looking at that, it's like, yeah, it's a different place in his career that he's in, but coming in, he kind of knew that like he is in that more leadership position. The guys answered that. Luka had no problem deferring that kind of credit to him and everything, because like, yeah, they really do operate like 1A, 1B, not 1-2 options or whatever. But like, yeah, Luka is the game plan, and Kyrie is just kind of got that green light whenever he wants to use it. And he said himself in the Clippers series that like he's kind of at a place in his career where he's got that perspective and that maturity where it's just like, look, I'm going to try to let the game come to me. I'm not going to try and come in here with an ego and like battle for Luka for who's really controlling this thing or who's behind the wheel or whatever. Like we're both just going to work together, and we're going to take our spots as they come. We're not going to force it. That's a thing that's hard for a lot of superstar pairings to get past. But with that perspective and where he's at, he sees that now. And I think this whole team is kind of feeding off of that.
Oh yeah.
So just y'all help me with my memory. So is this the first team that Kyrie, as a veteran, not young baby Kyrie, but is this the like pre-Braun in Cleveland? Like, is this the first team as a veteran that Kyrie's really been the obvious leader of? I'm just trying to think, like, because
I think it was the Celtics leader.
Yeah, Celtics.
Was he? Oh, that makes sense.
Supposed
Okay.
to be, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, man.
So that makes sense. Yeah, he was way young. He was way older than Tatum and Brown for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. So Boston was supposed to be that perception.
That's fair.
And then by the time Brooklyn's whole mess of a thing came around, I still can't get my head around the fact that the three of them only played 17 games together. Like for what all you acquired, that Nets team and the talent you had, and the fact that like if not for KD's toe, they're at least in the East Finals or whatever. Yeah. Just seeing all of that is just kind of wild. Thinking back on it, but obviously I'm glad that was a dumpster fire because that led to where we're at now.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Obviously, I'm happy with how it turned out, but that is a classic instance of what could have been, right? That Nets team, they could have been awesome.
Especially if they, but hey, this is where we at now. You know, we got to take advantage while we got them. Still in a prime age in a way. It's gotta see it through, man. And I think depending on the matchup, who knows? You know, who knows?
So I'm starting to get pushed on time here, but I figure we can take a few questions, or if you guys have closing points, anything like that we can go into. I got about 5-ish minutes before I got to wrap up here. Yeah, I appreciate both of you jumping on and talking with me here. I know this was kind of like a spur of the moment thing where my afternoon opened up and I was like, I'm going to go live. I'm just going to, put the invite out there to a couple of people, see if anyone's interested. So
I love it, man. Appreciate it.
Have very much enjoyed our chat today. And thank you to everyone else for tuning in and supporting the channel.
Oh, no problem, man. Thank you for having me here, bro. But yeah, whatever y'all want to do.
Yeah, roll it.
Yeah, anyone in the comments, you got a specific question, feel free to tag that, whether you tag at the Dallas Prospect, at DDP, whatever, just something so I know you're talking to us and not in your own back and forth, because sometimes I'll see a question, start to read it aloud, and then go like, damn it, that's not even to me. Like I'm like jumping into a conversation and it like makes no sense. So yeah, you can wrap that up, tag us with that, and I'll be curious to see what happens tonight. I know looking over in the East right now, that game 7, the Knicks are getting thwacked. So that Jalen Brunson thing's losing a little polish, I imagine, at this point. It's
Pacers 70, 15 at the half. Yeah.
25 at the half at home. Not strong there. Let's see. Cowboy X Factor. He was asking if we were watching that. Yeah, I guess Rick is getting the final laugh on this for the Jalen Brunson revenge series.
That's a funny angle. Yeah.
I do want to see Brunson get his flowers and everything like that. But I feel like we got into a point where it's too many flowers, and now I'm starting to turn a little bit against
MVP Brunson. You're like, wait, come on.
Yeah, once the narrative kind of turned into like Brunson was like the real reason everything worked and all that, and like, oh, look what they were able to do. Luka only got there because Brunson broke out and blah blah blah. So us getting to this point, and again, I don't want to take anything away from Brunson, but a little part of me is like, at least that narrative will at least die down a little bit as we're now there again. And they'll still give a lot of that credit to Kyrie, but for the crap Kyrie's had to go through, he deserves a little bit of flowers too. So I'll roll with that.
Yeah,
I did not know they were down 70-55 at halftime. They give up 70 points at half.
Yeah,
Pacers can do that, man. That offense can do that. We've felt that thing. Yeah.
Yeah, when things got shaky for us post All-Star break, where we had that stretch where suddenly fire Jason Kidd was a thing, Pacers were a big part of that cycle.
Didn't we play him twice in that?
Yeah, we played him twice in like 6 days, and both times they ran us off the court.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I was talking about it in the stream that I had. Like, who's the opponent out the East that you'd be worried about? And some of us came to the consensus it'd be Indiana, just because of the structure of their team and how they spread out the offense. Yes, we understand Boston, but
yeah,
Indiana, and they didn't face our current starting lineup, that's for sure. But that is a team that is just one of those, like, if they just stay hot a whole series, I don't know how you could match that, especially with the way we've been kind of hobbled. But yeah, Indiana gives me a little bit of a scare for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. Let's see, Richard Case here. He said, enjoyed the show as always. Just spreading the Dwight, Maxey, and Tim hate. My job, my mission. I appreciate that. I respect it.
Yes, sir, Richard.
Let's see. Oh, and also from Logan, we got a $5 donation. Appreciate you, sir. If Luka wins a chip at 25, he might have one of the best starts to an NBA career in recent history. Also, if the Mavs draft Bronny, could you see LeBron coming to the Mavs?
Oh my gosh.
That conversation. Could I see it? Yes. Do I think it's likely? No.
Right.
I'll say this. If the price of getting, because we know LeBron and Kyrie want to play together. If the price of getting him is literally a second-round pick on Bronny, I would have no problem at least rolling the dice. But I am going to say, like, I kind of want to see what happens with the rest of this year, because, like, how close are we? And do we want to try and bring in a third big kind of ego into the mix and have that sort of circus with it? But, like, yeah, if you got LeBron, Luka, and Kyrie, and it doesn't, like, make it so that you can't keep enough of your supporting structure, then yes, I'm very interested in that. But that's where I get curious, is like, we're already over here trying to figure out, like, how do we still afford to have, like, Derrick Jones Jr.? And now we're going to be like, how do we figure out LeBron? Like, what's LeBron willing to play for? Because he could play for nothing if he wanted. He's playing for the salary we pay his kid to pick him in the second round.
Okay, can I give you my insight on this LeBron thing? Because I have chopped this up a couple of times. I said, if LeBron wants to win 2 rings before he retires and get to his 6, the Mavs are his perfect option. But he has to come over here and take a massive pay cut.
Yeah.
Ideally for us, it would have to be a pay cut to where it's like a vet minimum. That way we could keep Derrick Jones. But say Derrick Jones gets a contract that we can't match, and he comes over here for a mid-level exception. Again, this is all hyperbole, so I don't take what I'm saying seriously like Eric did down there. But don't take it so serious. But if he wanted to, this will be his best opportunity to do so. The reason for that, he could be the small forward on our team, and he could mentor Omax. So whenever LeBron's ready to ride off into the sunset, Omax could slide right in and fill in that gap that LeBron leaves. But he could also play with Kyrie and Luka to end his career. get maybe another title or two, and then it's really difficult to talk about GOAT status if he has as many titles as the GOAT, right? So this is more of a legacy narrative for him. And if it's about money, then he's going to show you it's about money. If it's about legacy, he's going to show you it's about legacy.
Yeah. Two things on that real quick. I would just say, I think we've seen enough quote unquote super teams to know they don't always work.
Yep.
But I tend to believe in LeBron James. Like if he comes in and saying like, hey, I know this is Luka's show. I know where I am in the pecking order. I mean, for the first time in his career, he wouldn't be number one, right? Like if he comes in acknowledging that, he's a great enough basketball genius to make things work, right? I believe in his genius and his skill, even at 38, 39, 40, whatever he's creeping up on. But you know that if we draft Bronny James, it's because it's not like taking a shot. It's because all of the back channels have been buzzing, right? If Nico does something like that, it's because it's happening. And it's because it's agreed to. It's not like Nico's not going to go out on a whim and be like, let's see. No. It's because the communication has happened behind the scenes. Players have been talking and then communicating through agents and all that stuff. So like, I know that's not legal, but that's exactly what happens. Those guys find a way around the technicalities and they communicate exactly what their expectations are.
Yep.
Can I respond to Weezy? LeBron title with Mavs will taint it for Luka. It won't taint it for the Mavericks. That means we get another title, man. Like, are we really caring about what it tainted or what it wouldn't?
We're style pointing theoretical champions.
Like, give me more titles, man. What? Give me a title, man. Luka loves LeBron too. I mean, unless we're thinking Luka's gonna go for 8 and be the actual GOAT, then I guess. But are we really gonna be upset over
if
a
he
title?
goes for 8, only like 1 or 2 of those would have LeBron attached in any form. So if he goes for 6 post LeBron, no one's gonna be saying the first 2 don't count. Who cares? He still got 6. You know?
And unless you guys know differently, I'm pretty sure the Larry O'Brien trophy would look just the same on that shelf, right?
They don't actually chisel the asterisk in it. Instead of a basketball, it's an asterisk symbol on top of the net.
and LeBron's at the stage where he has to be the second or third option now. He's 30, going to be 39, going 40. Like he has to play the supportive role to Luka and Kyrie, and that has to be clear. And knowing Jason Kidd, he's very direct with players. That has to be clear. When you come here, you got to be the third or fourth option for us. It's crazy to say, but at that age that he's at, that's what he has to do, especially if he wants to get more titles under his belt. And I think it would work. I don't see why it wouldn't if that was the direction and the clear communication that they'd have prior to him coming here.
Yeah,
you're
I
right.
like this. Wrapping this up here, I saw this tweet. I was saying earlier that Lively, whether or not it was the highest plus minus ever, I did see confirmation on that. So, but I like this tweet from Tim McMahon here. Not often that I'll shout out that direction, but I did like the ring of this tweet. He says, Mavs and Thunder are franchises built around 25-year-old MVP candidates. OKC is the youngest 1 seed ever. Dallas rookie Dereck Lively II was the youngest player in the series and had the best plus minus.
Incredible.
Oh, damn. No, I did misread that. So he's saying the best plus minus in the series. He's not saying the all-time thing. So I still haven't gotten confirmation on that. So I can't even pay that off, but oh well. But he punctuated it with get used to the NBA's Red River rivalry. I'm like, I like the spin on that, the OU Texas kind of feel to that. Like, I want this to be a great heated rivalry here. The only thing that would be better would be if Seattle got a team again, and then you could have the Thunder and the Sonics would be like a perfect one. But that would be a fan base driven thing more than anything. But still.
Yeah, I love the league with rivalries.
Seattle team. But any closing thoughts here? Anything else we want to wrap up?
No, man. I just want to give you in front of DDP's crew here. Just give you both of you guys props for the communities you've created. Like as someone who's just newer to the game, like I love what you guys are building and have built. And so let me just tip my cap to you guys. I think it's really cool what y'all are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, TMP. And then you get in there, man. You grow in your side of it as well, man. So again, it's all about consistency, right? And we're all building together. We're all in the same universe. So I appreciate it, man. Just keep doing you as well.
That's awesome.
No, I love your stuff. Definitely have enjoyed our collaborations and everything here. So look forward to working with you more in the future.
Definitely, dude. Anytime.
But yeah, so if you guys haven't already, check out TGK, check out TMP as well. Get them subscribed to their channel, follow their content, follow them for sure on Twitter. No, I will not say X. And we'll be back soon. I'll probably do a little bit of live streaming as well during the week as well, just figuring things out as we go, because I will know by the morning what we got as far as our next round matchup. So we got to start thinking in those terms.
That's right.
But until then, like the video, subscribe to the Dallas Prospect, check out their channels, and remember, every legend was once a prospect. Peace.